Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Past to the Future. This is our final Christmas themed episode. And yes, we are talking about a Christmas movie today. It is totally a Christmas movie to all you
Sounds fun.
haters. My name is Curtis. I am the creator of Past the Future. I'll be serving as one of the debaters for today. We got Johnny coming back as a judge. We have Charlie here as a judge. We have George as our second debater. We have oh no, Charlie's the debater. Charlie's the debater. I'm sorry, Charlie's
Okay, I was gonna say, I'm like, I
yeah,
didn't want
Charlie.
to.
Charlie's our second debater. George is our third debater. Logan is on one of our judges. Jessica will be a judge. He's our head judge today, and Hunter is our last and fourth judge. And if you couldn't tell by at least Hunter's background, the Christmas movie we are talking about today is the action 1988 classic Die Hard. Die Hard came out in the summer of 1988, became an instant action classic that a lot of people now have found to actually watch around the holidays. Now, there are, of course, two type of people in this world. There are people who believe that Die Hard is a Christmas movie, and there are people who belong in a mental ward. I'll just say that. So, of course, this movie stars Bruce Willis. It was the debut of Alan Rickman. It had Reginald Johnson as a cop, like he always is. It has great action. It has an amazing story. Um, and I watch it every Christmas. And I watch it at times, even though it's not Christmas. This is a movie that you can watch anytime around the year, but I love it most when watching it around Christmas time. And as always, we'll start off by sharing a quick thoughts of the original film. I'll start first. As I said before, I love this movie. In my opinion, it is my favorite action movie of all time. Anytime it's on, I just have to watch it. I have to finish it all the way through. It's it it's quotable. The story it's simple yet a little bit complex, but anyone who watches it can understand what's going on. Characters are memorable. Everyone from John McClane to Hans Gruber, probably one of the best villains in cinema history, to the sleazy Harry Ellis, to Al Powell, to Dwayne Robinson. Um, they're all memorable, and you all remember some of the lines they say. It is masterfully directed. The action is great. It's tense. It's raw. Whenever someone gets punched in the face, you feel it, and it's it's unapologetically violent. I just love it, and everything about it, every minute of it is soaked with entertainment. It's truly one of the great action movies of all time. Let's go to George. What are your opinions on Die Hard?
Um, yeah, I mean, you pretty much took the words right out of my mouth. Like, I do consider it a Christmas movie, but I could watch it year round. So I guess that's one knock against it is that I wouldn't necessarily watch other Christmas movies year round. But it's definitely, if not my favorite action movie, it's in my top five. And yeah, it never gets old. Like some movies, I consider them great movies, but I can't watch them all the time. But Die Hard, I could watch anytime, really. And whenever I find someone that hasn't seen it, I get very excited because that means I can show them Die Hard for the first time. Um, so yeah, it's one of my favorites, and I also like the sequels a lot too. But I do think the first one is the best.
I actually never really saw any of the sequels. I think I only saw the fourth one. I don't want to watch the fifth one because I heard it's bad, but I always only saw a snippet of the second one and the third one. I heard the third one's really good, so I need to get on that. Charlie, what are your thoughts on Die Hard?
So Die Hard was one of the movies that I saw for the first time during quarantine. And so I had never seen it before until a couple months ago. And immediately when I saw it, I knew I wanted to do a script reading of it, of which most of you guys were a part of, and you were all great. Unfortunately, for my panel today, I had to cast actual actors, or else I would have had all of you reprising your roles because you were all beautiful people. Um, yeah, it quickly shot up my list in my top five potentially movies of all time. Like the weird, like I took it in like a really weird, like probably thinking too much way of going about it is I think the whole movie is just like about smashing toxic masculinity. I think the entire movie, like, because the whole reason Holly and John are kind of apart right now is because, oh, I'm big bad Mr. Cop guy. Like, oh, my wife is making more money than I am. I don't want anything to do with that. And immediately after they sort of reconcile, they have a little fight. And then as he's kind of walking around as the terrorists are going in, he's like figuring out the situation, but he's also like, oh, I could have taken that conversation with my wife a little differently. And I don't know, there's just different little nuanced moments throughout it that just kind of like realized that John McClane realizes like what it takes to like to be a good person and to be a good man and like push Hans Gruber out that mother truck. Caught myself. And yeah, it's really cool. And I had seen the parodies of it done by Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Bob's Burgers, and now I understand and love them way more.
And Cleveland Show. Let's not forget Cleveland Show. They did a whole episode there as well.
Forget the Cleveland Show.
Hunter, what are your thoughts on Die Hard?
Well, I mean, you guys have. I got to echo what you guys have been saying. I mean, first off, of course, it is a Christmas movie, so let's let it snow. I don't know how well that effect is coming through, but yeah. Let's see. I mean, this movie, it stands out from so many other action movies, not just because of its action, but I think because of its themes, much like Charlie was saying, it ushered in a new era of action hero. This was kind of the end of the roided out, swole dudes like your Stallones, your Schwarzeneggers, and, you know, transition us more into like the everyman. John McClane was sort of that stopgap in between. The characters are very human, very believable. And I mean, the script itself, I studied this, I have had this script assigned to me in multiple screenwriting classes because structurally it is, by the book, just one of the most perfect screenplays out there. So yeah, top to bottom, every piece of this movie just works in a way that it really shouldn't for something that was meant to be a sequel to a Frank Sinatra vehicle. But that's one of my favorite little factoids about the Die Hard series is that almost every one of them was not meant to be a Die Hard movie, including the first one. They're all scripts for something else that later were given the hero, John McClane. The worst Die Hard movie being the only one that was meant to be a Die Hard movie, of course, and that would be number 5. So if you are watching the sequels, Curtis and anybody else, watch 1, 3, maybe 4. I think you could skip 2 and 5. 2 is basically like the first one, but in an airport. And last thing I'll say about Die Hard is that it basically created its own subgenre of action movies where so many movies to this day are described as Die Hard, but in a blank. Whether you've got Olympus Has Fallen, which is Die Hard in the White House. So many other movies pitched as like Die Hard, but on a boat. Die Hard, but here. So yeah, it's kind of like its own little subgenre of action movie.
Jessica, what are your thoughts on Die Hard?
Die Hard is one of those movies. I was a little late to the game with Die Hard. I think the first time I saw it was Christmas 2016 with my dad, but I loved it and I completely understood like all the hype about it. I was really happy it wasn't overrated. It's one movie that does make me think of my dad a lot because it's like action and it's funny. And I mean, you guys said it best, like it had such a reverb on American movie and TV culture. Like we have spinoffs like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, American Dad. Like there's so many spoof episodes of Die Hard, which I feel like just kind of adds to the phenomenon that it was. And Bruce Willis in a tank top. You can't go wrong.
Awesome. Johnny, what are your thoughts on Die Hard?
My thoughts are this is a staple of getting well, of just like remembering that the world is okay and all that kind of jazz. Whether or not it's a Christmas movie, like I said before we recorded, I'm like 80-20 on saying yes. But Die Hard has always just been a staple of, for me, whenever I got sick, I pop in the DVD. It's one of those things that makes me feel just medicinally better in a way, I guess. Die Hard gave us like the perfect cop, and that is Detective Al or Sergeant Al Powell. He's firm without being, a strong hard. Like I also have headcanon where he's still Carl Winslow, and the kid he shot was Urkel. This movie's a staple as being a cis hetero dude. Like it especially in the 90s too. This super speaks to me, and just that whole go get him, be the guy who does the right thing, even if you are fumbling as a dude, as a cis hetero dude. So Die Hard is it's a classic. I love it.
I hate to interrupt, but I have to go back. You think headcanon Al Powell killed Urkel? I'm sorry. I had to make sure I heard that right.
A little
That's
bit.
awesome.
It's kind of in my head canon too.
That's awesome.
I'm pretty sure that's established in the text.
It's just like the line, he had a ray gun, it seemed real enough. Like who else would have a ray gun,
Al Powell is left with the haunting question. Did I do
That's why he changed his name.
Yeah, he changes.
All right.
I heard it was
finally,
before Family Matters, so
Sorry,
this is what led to Family Matters.
To
Yeah.
make sure I heard that correctly, but that's awesome.
You did.
finally, Logan, what are your thoughts on Die Hard?
Oh man. I mean, they kind of mirror everybody else's. For me, when I saw Die Hard, it was one of the first action movies that I saw that had a sense of humor. Like it is genuinely really funny in places. Seeing some of the characters interact. I mean, I know it's not like meant to be a laugh out loud joke, but like literally what is on Hunter's sweatshirt right now? Like that is one of the funniest moments in action, because it's like, cool, what's he gonna do to let him know? And it's just ho ho ho, now I have a machine gun. Like that's funny. Like, so it's one of the first movies that I saw that kind of worked that in there. I do think it, and it shows they were leaning into that, because when they cast Bruce Willis, he was the comedy guy. He was coming from TV and Hudson Hawk and all of that. Like he was not the big action movie, whatever. So it's no, Die Hard's a fun one. I agree with what was said earlier. The fourth one is definitely worth watching. That one's fun. But the rest of the sequels, I think you watch 3 and 4, and that's it. Die Hard's a great movie. It's one of those pure perfect action movies. No matter what, like any weird issue with it, like it fixes itself by the end of the movie. Like it's a fun movie, plain and simple. So this is gonna be an interesting one.
Just to clarify, I have seen Die Hard 4. It's been a long time ago, but I did see it. But so I just have to watch. I guess I just have to watch 3 because everyone says 3 is pretty good. It has Sam Jackson in it, so yeah. But as with all Cast of the Future episodes, we're gonna pretend that Die Hard never came out in 1988, but instead was first being released in 2020. Now this is a bit of a weird feature, because does other movies that were made because of Die Hard exist, or did they not exist? Did Olympus Has Fallen exist? Did Skyscraper exist? Maybe they did, but Die Hard is the best of them. So at least we got that. So Jessica's going to take over as soon as we get started. But as for now, let's cast the future. Jessica, take us away.
Okay, guys. So the first character that we're going to be talking about for Cast of the Future is Argyle. Not only is it one of my favorite sweater prints, but Argyle was also the limo driver that was assigned to pick up John McClane from LAX and transport him to the Nakatomi Plaza for the corporation's Christmas party. He was originally played by Deborah White. So without further ado, Charlie, who were you wanting to cast for Argyle?
All right. So when I was thinking about who to pick for Argyle, I was thinking attitude, cool, but also with that nerd vibe. And the only person I thought of to come to mind right away is Pete Davidson. Pete Davidson is, I think, at this point with this generation of people on Saturday Night Live, he's someone who I will go to watch that show every Saturday to see what he is doing. SNL has not had that since the early 90s with those like Eddie Murphy and stuff like that. Now, the group with like Will Ferrell and Bill Hader and all that, they were an amazing ensemble, but I wasn't going every week to see one of those people individually. Pete Davidson is so out of the park and original and sort of leading that show right now, especially in his he's one of the youngest cast members to do it. He's funny. Everything he writes is great. His performances, even his stand-up, it's so unapologetically him, I guess. And I think that's what makes him perfect for Argyle. He's going to be picking John or Jane or Don, whoever, McClane up at the airport, and he's going to be him. Like, yeah, he's dressed in this limo driver's outfit, and he's doing the hoi polloi routine of like, let me take your bag, sir. But he can't help but shine through that exterior. And we see his own personality with it. He's talking to John McClane, and he's talking to John McClane through the stuffed animal. Like, he's talking about the bear in the back, and it's like, is he single, or does he have a wife or something? And that's, I thought, was a really interesting sort of icebreakery way for him to break John McClane's really hard shell. So Pete Davidson, he's kind of wild. He's great personality, and he's got a good face that I think would be perfect for this role. The end. Charlie Rosenman, 2020.
Trademark, copyright. Nobody take it. Curtis, who is your choice for Argyle?
All right, my choice for Argyle is simply the guy who was born to play this character. Yes, this character appeared a year this guy was born, but I still think he was born to play this character. And that is Andrew Batchelor, who some of you people know as King Batch, who was one of the most famous Viners ever, who probably had the most subscribers on Vine. But not only is he a social media personality, he is now a full-fledged actor. He's been in a lot of movies and a lot of Netflix movies. He's in the two Babysitter films. He showed up in Chris Rock's Top 5 in a small role. I forgot what the movie's called, but he's going to be in a new movie that features Jeremy Irons to connect us all back to Die Hard. So yeah, he's rising up in his career, and even if you watch his Vines, you could see his personality like seep through the screen and what he could do. This guy just embodies what the type of person Argyle is. This fun-loving, heavily extroverted, very charismatic, very, very hilarious type of dude who you just want to hang out with. You just want to be best buds with. You know he's got your back, and you know he's gonna say something to crack you up just to make you smile. So yeah, my choice is Andrew Batchelor, aka King Batch.
All right, and finally, George, who would you like to cast as Argyle?
Okay. So yeah, similar to Charlie, I'm actually going with an SNL alum as well. Jay Farrow. He's just kind of who immediately came to mind when I was thinking of Argyle. He's just hilarious, and I think he was kind of underused on SNL. He was primarily known for like his impersonations, very good impersonations of people like Denzel Washington. And he, like, looking at his IMDb, like post SNL, he's done a few things. He had like a short-lived show called Famous, and then he's popped up in some stuff, but I feel like he's just very underrated and very underused. And I mean, Argyle is kind of a small role, but it's a very memorable role, and I feel like just getting him out there more would be cool, and just getting him in more parts. And again, I just think he's hilarious and doesn't get maybe the respect that he deserves. So I would love to see him in something else. So yeah, going with Mr. Jay Farrow.
All right, cool. Debate it out, guys.
All right. First, I'll say that a lot of these actors seem like they would fit the role very well. From even to like Pete Davidson and Jay Farrow. The only thing I'll say about Pete Davidson is I don't think Pete Davidson. I mean, he probably has a little bit of the attitude, but I don't think he has the energy to be Argyle, because Argyle's always he's always kind of loud. He's always like kind of rambunctious. Whenever he's talking on the phone or jiving his head to music. And
you haven't seen the Stew skit from SNL, have you?
No,
he's got energy there, and he's.
But I just think Pete Davidson is, to his credit, he comes off as a little bit more subtle, a bit more subdued. As for Jay Farrow, I love Jay Farrow. I'm a Jay Farrow stan. Anytime I feel like it, I just watch a compilation of whenever he's doing his impersonations, because he just kills it. I just think that that's Jay Farrow just has that kind of that stigma to him. Whenever if people see him on screen, they expect him to do like a Will Smith impression or a Denzel impression, like or Barack Obama impression, what he's known for. So I think it would be just a little bit distracting.
Mm-hmm.
I think what would be distracting from both of your characters is the fact that they're 5 to 8 years older than Pete Davidson. Pete Davidson's in his early 20s, and both of your characters are in their mid to early 30s. And I think the character of Argyle is supposed to be this college-age kid who's kind of maybe got this job on a whim to get some extra money, and to see both these people in their mid 30s doing it doesn't seem super accurate. I mean, I think that age would take away from like the playful nature that character is supposed to have.
Well, with casting, they don't really look at like the literal age of the actor. They look at what age does this actor look like. And I mean, you know what they say, black don't crack. and
did you look at Argyle? Like, okay, I guess we're forgetting that the other movie existed.
With Andrew Bachelor and even with Jay Farrow, they don't, even though they're in their 30s, they don't look like that. They do look like they can be in college. I mean, Andrew Bachelor in The Babysitter, he pretty much played a teenager. So if they could get someone in his late 20s, early 30s to play a teenager, for him to play a teenager, I think he could work playing a college-aged Argyle for that.
I mean, I think King Batch was in his 20s when he was doing the Babysitter a couple years ago, though. I don't really have anything to say against Jay Farrow, because I think age was my only thing against him, because I love Jay Farrow. He's awesome.
Yeah, but that's my only. I mean, the thing with Jay Farrow, I think it's the only thing is that people know him, and again, it's a stigma to him that he's a talented comedian. He's a talented performer, but I just think most like mainstream people who watch mainstream media, who know him from SNL, just don't know him about what more he could do, but just for his impressions. And I think that would be a little distracting if they were thinking about casting Jay Farrow. I think that would come up in some casting agents' minds, like, oh wait, like this might be it might be a little distracting to the audience, because they'll expect him to just bust out and do like Denzel or Will Smith or Jay-Z or something like that.
I don't know if that's no. Sorry, go ahead, George.
I was just gonna say, with I want to get his name right, Andrew Bachelor. Like Charlie, I don't really know him very well, Curtis. So that would really be my only thing, is I don't really know him. And with Pete Davidson, I feel like I like Pete Davidson, but I kind of agree with Curtis that his personality just doesn't seem to fit. It almost seems like he'd be better as like Ellis or something, like someone who's like coked out in the office building and kind of hitting on Holly. And also, I mean, I don't really agree that Pete Davidson has been carrying SNL. And also, you're right, he's very like unique. So like his personality fits the sketches on the show, but I just don't know if it would fit Argyle. So that would really be my only argument against him. He just seems like he wouldn't be right for that. Maybe more for Ellis.
Another thing that I wanted to say is that I think again, you don't have to really watch his like performances in some of his movies. Like, you could just go back and watch some of his Vines. I mean, people bad talk Vine a lot, and then when it went away, people started to miss it. But If you watch the compilation videos of his vines, like the time you have to make people laugh in like 7 seconds, like he gets it down. He knows about comedic timing. He knows when to strike. He knows how to pace himself. He knows how to deliver great comedic one-liners. Any of the one-liners that Argyle has, I can easily see King Batch or Andrew Batchelor say like, if this is how I celebrate Christmas, then I gotta be here for New Year's, or like talking about like Christmas and holidays, like this is Christmas music, or laughing when John McClane totally like burns Dwayne T Robinson over the radio, things like that. Talking on the phone and pretending to talk to the teddy bear in the back seat. Those are things I could easily see him do, because that's just Andrew Batchelor's type of comedy. And I guess that would be it for my argument.
All right, any last words, guys?
No, like I said, I made my final statement.
Yeah.
Unless
Charlie, George, you guys good?
I'm good, yeah.
All right. This was hard because I love all three of your choices. I'm so mad that you made this so hard.
You're welcome.
With Jay Farrow, he's incredibly talented, and I wouldn't even say that like I don't think he's been put in a box because of his impressions, although we all know that he's very famous for that. He's also a really good actor. I think my only concern is that he seems like somebody who visually he looks like he would have his life together, and Argyle still seems like he's kind of like that up and coming, kind of struggling, like I'm just doing this for the meantime. So that was the only thing that kind of turned me away from Jay Farrow. So mine was between Curtis and Charlie's, and it's hard because like even though you guys had points against them for each other, they, to me personally, carry a lot of the same kind of chaotic, frenetic energy, which would work really well for a character like this, I feel. But the only thing that kind of stuck out to me, like if you haven't seen the Yeet Skirt set, like sketch from SNL with Pete Davidson and Timothée Chalamet, like that energy I felt actually really worked for a character like this. So it was really tough. It was really close, but I think I'm going to go with Charlie's choice for Pete Davidson. Yeet skirt, you never loved me, Mom. Hunter, what's your choice?
All right. I found myself in a similar frame of mind. I liked all three choices. George, I feel like I didn't hear enough from you on the pro column for Jay Farrow, and I think they did sort of put your choice in the box, focusing on the impressions and such. And I think you kind of hurt yourself a little bit too, like talking about how like he hasn't had much going on in his career. So I went between Pete Davidson and King Bash, or however you say it. And because I hate Vine, just kidding. Because I think Charlie genuinely made me feel like Pete Davidson would embody the character personality-wise the most, I got to give Charlie the point here for Pete Davidson. Very unexpected, yet oddly fitting casting.
What a handsome decision, Hunter.
Thank you, Charlie, and a very attractive compliment from you as well.
Logan, what's your choice?
Oof. I mean, this was a tricky debate. I liked all of these. When it came to a lot of them, like Pete Davidson, I agree that he is in the right age range, but I will also say that every time I've seen him in something, he always seems like he has plans upon plans upon plans, where it's like, all right, I'm going to do this. If that falls through, I'm going to do that. And that, I don't know, made me seem like he was a bit too prepared for someone like Argyle. Jay, I do agree with what was said earlier that George, I wish you had kind of had a little bit more to say about Jay, to kind of because I do think he is a good fit for the role. But Curtis, I liked your argument with King Batch. I liked a lot of the stuff with how he always kind of brings this vibrancy and this energy. when he is on screen, that would carry over for someone like Argyle. I could see there being an entire reel of footage of just them cutting away to him making some kind of comment to what John or Dawn or whoever is saying on the walkie, trying to decide what the best joke is going to be, because he's just rattling off a bunch because he's, coming from the Vine background where he's has to kind of have those quick and ready to go. So yeah, I think if it was me, I'd go with Curtis's choice.
All right, and Johnny.
Hey guys, really great arguments all around. Jay Farrow and just the whole argument about age in 2020 seems a little irrelevant because we're all struggling just to make ends meet and all that kind of stuff. So that argument I don't know, man. I'm too old to be working so hard, and I could see that in older actors playing people who need jobs like this. As far as Curtis's guy, Vine works great. Vine works wonders. It makes stars of the people who do put the effort in, and to bring effort and to work hard for a role is what I see out of Vine stars, or at least people who make quick shareable media. But my answer has to be Pete Davidson. I think probably because he seems like he'd be the one most like to bump Run DMC, Christmas in Hollis. He, my only worry about choosing him would be, would he want it, and would it be too small a role for him? But he would reach out to a younger, more comedic audience. I think his star power with, Ariana Grande, whatever his, celebrity tabloid status thing is, people will be like, oh, it's Pete Davidson. But yeah, I'm going to go with Pete.
Alrighty, so with that, the choice for Argyle is Pete Davidson. We're going to be moving on to the next round. It's going to be a double round, so we're going to be talking about two different characters.
Yep.
The first of which is going to be Joe Takagi. I think I'm saying that right. If not, crucify me later. Joe Takagi was the president of Nakatomi Trading and appeared, of course, in Die Hard. He was initiating operations of the Nakatomi Corporation in Los Angeles when a group of terrorists seized the building. He is originally played by James Shigeta. And then the second person we're going to be casting is for Harry Ellis. Harry Ellis was a sleazy businessman who was working for Nakatomi Corporation. He's a cocaine user and stereotypical yuppie. He arrogantly tries to assist Hans Gruber in betraying John McClane to save his own life, only to get himself killed by Gruber in the process. And he was originally played by Hart Bachner. So for Takagi and Harry Ellis, George, what are your choices?
All right. So I guess I'll start with Takagi. For Takagi, I'm going with Ryu Ishibashi. I know him mostly from Audition, the movie Audition. He was the star of that. I just watched it for the first time, and I thought he was really good in it. And if you haven't seen Audition, he's the main character and essentially the hero, but he's playing a guy who is auditioning women to be his wife, which is like a very, immoral thing to do, but he's so likable and nice, and even though he's doing the wrong thing, you still feel bad for him throughout the movie because horrible things happen. So I just feel like he would have the likableness and charm that Takagi has. You really like Takagi, so when, things, if you haven't seen the movie, things don't go well for Takagi, you're genuinely upset. And I think that Ryu Ishibashi would really bring that to the table. He was also in the first two Grudge movies. He was in a movie called Suicide Club, and apparently he's also in a rock band in Japan, which is pretty awesome. So he just seems like a very nice, likable man, and would be the right age, I think, for Takagi. I would believe that he's been running Nakatomi for a while. And if you haven't seen Audition, go watch it immediately. But it's a crazy movie.
And for Harry Ellis?
I'm sorry, yeah. Ellis, I'm doing Charlie Day. Probably best known for It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where he plays Charlie. Even though Die Hard has a lot of humor in it, I feel like Ellis is kind of one of the more comedic characters, and so I feel like it would be cool to cast maybe someone who's more known for comedy in this part. Ellis in the movie, he's doing cocaine, he's hitting on Holly, John's wife. And then he's trying to sweet talk Hans later on. So I just feel like Charlie Day's comedy chops would really come in handy here. And you would believe that he's someone that's like a cokehead that works at this company and who's, been trying to seduce Holly unsuccessfully for a while. For those who don't watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, he's also in like Horrible Bosses. He was in the movie Fist Fight. And is, just very funny, one of my favorite comedy actors, and I think he'd be very funny in the role. So I'm going with Charlie Day for Ellis, and then Ryu Ishibashi for Takagi.
Awesome. And Curtis, who are your choices for Takagi and Ellis?
So first, for Takagi, I am choosing the always charismatic, always lovable George Takei. Oh my! I think George Takei is a legendary actor, a legendary character actor. Of course, you know him as Hikaru Sulu in the Star Trek original series, some of the original Star Trek movies. That's what he's known for. His appearances on Third Rock from the Sun and and also he's known for some other famous roles as well. I think George Takei has this. When you're talking about Joe Takagi, there's this warmness to him, this kindness to him. Yeah, he's a CEO of a big corporation, but he's like one of the good CEOs. Like he cares for his employees. He always lets them know when they're doing a great job. He puts in the 1980s. He has like a woman in Holly Genero in top position. He's a very progressive CEO, and I think George, knowing what kind of guy George Takei is, I think I could easily see him as that aged, wise, experienced dude who has a lot of experience in the business world and the law world, but still has that progressiveness to him that could that helps his personality. As for Harry Ellis, I am choosing Draco Malfoy himself, Tom Felton. Tom Felton, he knows how to do this role. Of course, with Draco Malfoy, he's always been this sleazy, this conniving, this unlikable, this guy you love to hate. And Tom Felton plays characters like that well with his character in The Flash season 3, and also his character that has a little bit significance in the first of the Planet of the Apes movies with Andy Serkis, Rise of the Planet of the Apes. That's what the first one was called. Yeah, where he plays like a really jerky like zookeeper. And of course, and from that role in Rise of the Planet of the Apes, he could do an American accent. He could choose to do his British accent if he wants to for this film. It'll work fine. And and there's something about Harry Ellis' appearance that adds to the sleaziness of him, like just his beard, like something about him in his beard looks like he's a jerk. Like, not to get into politics, but he kind of has that Donald Trump Jr. type of look to him, and I think Tom Felton can easily get that look with the way his face is shaped. He could grow out that beard and look like a real a real sleazeball. Now, Charlie, you look way better than Hunter, and Charlie look way better than Donald Trump.
I resemble that remark.
Yeah, it's just the way their face is shaped. But yeah, Tom Felton for Harry Ellis.
All right, and Charlie, who are your choices for Takagi and Ellis?
All right, so I'll swap it up and do Harry Ellis first. For Harry Ellis, I have Mr. Timothy Simons, who, if you're a fan of Veep, he plays Jonah, who is just the absolute worst person in the world. He is always annoying, kind of sniveling, conniving, trying to advance his own career, not giving a crap about how many people he dicks over in the long run. He thinks he's hot stuff with the ladies, but everyone's really just kind of repulsed by him. And I think that combined with Harry Ellis's known, oh, you've all been pronouncing it incorrectly, by the way, it's Kyokain. Kyokain is how it's pronounced. And I think if you give him that sort of character direction, he could amplify his character of Jonah to the absolute max, bringing Harry Ellis, the slime, the sleaze, kind of good looking until you hear him talk, and then you hate him. So that's my number one pick for Harry Ellis is Timothy Simons. Number two for Mr. Joseph Takagi, I have Mr. George Kusunoki Miller, who others might know by a couple of other names. One of his other names you might know him by is Joji, the musical artist, who does kind of like lo-fi sort of stuff. Another, if you're a fan of Vine, you might be familiar with this, his other persona of Filthy Frank, of one of the absolute most famous YouTubers of all time, creating just really absurd content. And the reason I picked him for Joseph Takagi is I'm kind of wanting to go in a different direction. Almost what I think was the only good point of Batman vs Superman was making Lex Luthor a young billionaire startup type sort of dude. That's sort of my motivation with making Joseph Takagi this sort of young, almost party boy-esque Japanese guy. But as we would see in the movie, which we can hear in Joji's music, his transition from this absolutely wild sort of shock jock type of personality to a serious and soulful musical artist, I think he would be able to bring that to the second half of the movie where the terrorists come in and you could really see him sort of flex those serious chops in terms of like, I am Joe Takagi, you're going to take me and I'll deal with you. Don't deal with all these other people in my company. If you're going to be taking everyone hostage, it's going to be me because I run this BITCH. So that's the vibe I wanted with Joseph Takagi. That's why I picked George Kusunoki Miller, aka Joji, aka Filthy Frank.
All right, debate.
First, I don't know much about George's choice for Takagi. All I can say is that I'm looking at pictures of him and looking up his career, and yeah, he does look like he could be. He has like the right appearance, kind of the right age for Takagi. Seem like George Takei, as with George Kusunoki Miller, or aka Joji. Again, I don't know much about him, but just looking at, I know it's kind of an easy target. It's the age. I didn't expect him to be this young. And I don't think it would work within the context of the story of the movie, because again, remember when Hans Gruber first comes in to the floor and he's like, "I am looking for Joseph Takagi," and he's listing off all the
thing, Curtis, though, is one of the rules for this is you keep having to remind everyone that we're forgetting that other movie exists, but you keep referencing back to it, which is sort of putting a damper on the new ideas other people are proposing to the table. So
I mean,
that's just what I'm noticing. And honestly, with Tom Felton and Charlie Day, I think both of them would nail it out of the park. Honestly, I'm a big fan of both of them, but I think you picked two cursed actors, man. They're too cursed. And Tom Felton and who was the other one? George Takei, right? Or am I? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you picked two cursed actors. In the pre-screenings for these movies alone, they would be recast immediately because all of the people in the room observing the people watching the movie would be laughing at how much everyone's going pata 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 and how much everyone else is going oh my, oh my, oh my. So I just don't think that I honestly personally would give them the chance. But a big studio remaking something as much as Die Hard, I think they would be too afraid to put themselves in that box. Charlie Day is a bit in that category too. I think a little less so because It's Always Sunny is such a niche audience, and I would love to see him take on some bigger role. And if you've seen The Artemis Hotel, I know I'm finding myself defending your decision, George, but if you've seen The Artemis Hotel, he is a smooth, like smarmy SOB in that movie. So I guess I didn't do much for my own choice, but I shot down Curtis.
Okay, but I would say that if people are distracted that when they watch Tom Felton, they see Draco Malfoy, I think that's a good thing because Harry and Malfoy kind of share the same traits. I mean, they see. It's not like they're trying to have Tom Felton play a completely different type of character. Both Draco Malfoy and Harry Ellis are the
Yeah,
same.
but if you're gonna go that route, go someone who's different. Like I keep finding myself defending you, George, because I think it's such a good choice. Like Charlie Day, like this insane sort of like not very articulate person, but going to like I guess I could use it to defend my own guys, because if you've seen any of Filthy Frank's videos online, he's just out. It's shock value. It's like disgusting, but it's really funny.
I mean, as with George Takei, the mainstream audience doesn't see George Takei as the way like the nerd fandom society sees George Takei. I mean, I don't think the mainstream audience knows about the
Curtis, my mom follows George Takei on Twitter.
I mean, none of the mainstream audience knows about the oh my in jokes. I mean, they just see like a kind of an elderly Japanese guy, which Joe Takagi kind of is. I mean, a lot of people might see him
again, though. That's in the movie that we're supposed to know doesn't exist.
Well, I will say for your choice, Charlie, we are working with the same script, so I feel like casting a very young man as Takagi would be a mistake because he's almost like a father figure to Holly. And I don't know much about George Kusunoki Miller, but he seems like a guy that if he got shot in the head, I wouldn't care. I'd be like, oh, okay, that's too bad. But I feel like the way it's written, Takagi is like an older man and like I said, a father figure to Holly. And at first I thought you were casting George Miller, the director, as Takagi. And I was like, well, that's a choice.
That's a choice.
But for George Takei, Curtis, I do think that's a great choice. I was looking at what he's doing lately. It seems like he's mostly doing voice work. I don't know if he would want to do a role like this. I don't know if he's too famous or maybe if he just doesn't want to, it focuses more on saying.
I believe the dude's a theater trained actor
now than actually acting. Yeah.
He loves to act, whether it's voiceover or on television or in movies. The dude just loves to act. So I think if you ask him, hey, would you want to have a role in this big budget action movie, I think he'd say yes in a heartbeat. And as going back to George's thing about when Hans Gruber kills him, I mean, what's the audience gonna be on John McClane's side more for killing and for this young Lex Luthor type of CEO, probably for George's choice, they'll probably feel bad, but for George Takei, it's like, you shot George Takei. Oh no, these a-holes gotta go. So I think it would just help the audience be more on the hero's side. Because you get those terrorists. They killed Sulu. So
if they kill a guy named Joji, I'm fine with that.
As for Charlie Day, I think Charlie Day is the type of guy. I mean, yeah, he could play a little bit of sleazeball. I mean, he already plays kind of a jerk in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia and in the Pacific Rim films. But I just think Charlie Day is the type of guy who would be stepped on by someone like a Harry Ellis. I can't really see him as. I could see him as like Harry Ellis's assistant. I can't really see him as Harry Ellis. Whereas Tom Felton, he already has that smarminess to him. He's played a smarmy character already. And even if people do still see him as Draco Malfoy, they're not going to care because, he's still playing a smarmy, jerky character. I'm used to him playing with this. So yeah, he's killing it in this role already, and I really love to hate him. And that's the important thing about Harry Ellis. You have to love to hate him. He's a character you love to hate.
And that's Jonah and Veep. No one's attacked my Harry Ellis yet. Come at it, boys.
I used to watch Veep. I don't remember it very well though. He does seem like an asshole. I don't know. I mean, I feel like with Ellis, you're right. It's like he's not really likable necessarily, but I feel like I don't know, like when he gets killed, it's not as big of a deal as with Takagi. It's almost like he deserved it. But like you're not like laughing at him dying, but like I don't know. I just feel like Charlie Day would bring that likableness with that energy as well. Tom Felton, I wish I was more into Harry Potter so I know he can play kind of like a smarmy villain, but I'm not sure if he can have the energy and like the comedy chops that I think Ellis brings to the table.
Oh, Tom Felton, he has a lot of great comedic timing, even in the Harry Potter films. Whenever like he gets his comeuppance, it's always funny, and his reactions to him getting his comeuppance is always hilarious. So yeah, I think Tom Felton can bring some comedy to this role as well.
I have to disagree with something you said, George. You said that, and I'm going to kind of use it against you because you said Charlie Day would bring a likableness to the character of Harry Ellis. You're supposed to hate that MF from the second he comes on screen. We've established that John McClane is on his way to see his wife. The next character of major importance we see in the sequence is his wife. Who's next to him like a little lap dog trying to get a bone? Harry Ellis. I cheered when Harry Ellis died the first time I saw it because I was like, this is a man in charge of John McClane. He is sort of presented to the audience as the polar opposite of John McClane, as a threat to his manhood by honing in on his woman. And we see that he is brought down by his own hubris. And I cheered when that happened. I was like, yes, this is the decision. This is what the director is trying to tell me, that like, I want John McClane to win because honesty, like integrity, that sort of stuff, and everything that Harry Ellis is presented as, all his personality traits are the exact opposite of that. No honor, like drug abuse. Not that there's anything wrong with drug abuse in today's society, but other like covetry, like greed, obsessed with money. Like those aren't things that John McClane worries about thinking or thinks are important. And I just think that I just wanted to disagree with saying that he had any likable qualities at all.
Right. Well, I do think I mean, maybe likable isn't the word, but he's not like a villain. And I mean, like, in his own misguided way, he is trying to help by going in and talking to Hans, but you can tell he's an idiot. And I feel like Charlie Day can do that. He can play an idiot. He can play someone that's bordering on being like, you know, a bad person, but you still kind of like him. And I think when he does die, it's not like with Takagi, but like you are supposed to feel bad for him because he's really an idiot going in there. And you know, and John also feels very bad about it too. Like John McClane isn't like, good, the guy that's hitting on my wife is dead. He's like, it's my fault that he's dead. So that's supposed to be like a big moment, you know?
I agree. Excuse me.
You know? And yeah, I mean, with again, with Tom Felton, my limited experience with him, I know he can play kind of a douchebag, but you know, or a jerk or whatever, you know. But I don't know his comedy chops as well. Tim Simons, from what I remember from Veep, I guess he would be funny, but I just, you know, I think Charlie Day would be better for the reasons I've stated previously. Yeah.
I think I said what I have to say.
All right, good round, guys. Hunter, why don't you start us off?
All righty then. I'll start with Joseph Takagi because I found this one a little more clear cut. Charlie, nice offbeat pick there, but I think that they got you with a little bit of maybe it's be almost too distracting to have this like young CEO type. And at the same time as well, Curtis, I think that the idea with George Takei, as much as I love Uncle George, and I too follow him on social media, his persona is maybe a little too big for even like this bit part. And I think George nailed it with Ryu, where I am a little familiar with this actor, where he would perfectly fit into this role as well as evoke just enough like sympathy from us without like overshadowing the rest of what's going on story-wise. So for Takagi, I'm going to give it to George. I found the picks for Ellis a lot more difficult because all three of these are people I love to hate. I mean, Tom Felton is the original Slytherin, and as a Slytherin, I felt compelled to go for him. But I think there's something about whether it's in the age or the experience that I think that the other two just had stronger arguments for them. And then it's between like the goofy yet lovable Charlie Day, or that epileptic Picasso painting that is Timothy Simmons. I mean, do I go with everybody's favorite? It's always, yeah, I got my words crossed over there. Do I go with everyone's favorite? It's always sunny guy, or do I go with the 60-foot virgin? I think the argument came down to, for me, is that Harry Ellis is a guy that you love to hate, and Charlie Day is a little too charming, and Timothy Simmons is too much fun, so much fun to hate that literally the writers of Veep came up with so many insults for him, some of which I've been rattling off. So yeah, I'm gonna give that one to Charlie for Jonad, aka Timothy Simmons.
All right, and Johnny.
All right, guys. So, take a break.
Sorry, go ahead, Johnny. I thought Mike was muted.
All right, so I'm gonna have to play my bad Asian card, ho ho ho, because casting Takaki,
That was an awesome prop, by the way.
right, is just that when I was doing homework for this, it was just kind of like, I know George, and I also think it's funny that the names of George and Charlie are being debated in this debate as the debaters are George and Charlie, so that was fun. But my impulse, my whiteness was just like, I know who that Asian guy is, and that was kind of my bad Asian card. So the other thing was that nobody mentioned that we are dealing with, or maybe I'm just not a good listener, but nobody mentioned that we're dealing with the corporate yin and yang. We are looking at people who are the opposites of each other. You have someone who's warm against someone who's harsh-edged, and just everything that's bad about corporate America, especially in the 80s. But if this movie is being made in 2020, we are dealing with money and big money in a different way. So I think corporate makes a big difference here. So I would say I'm going to have to go with Joji, mainly because of two reasons. Side note, George Miller, the director George Miller as Takaki would have been great. I would have loved just how bizarre and out of the world that would have been. It's like his name's Takaki, but he's clearly from Down Under. This is great. But I'm going to have to go with the young angle and have to go with Joji, mainly for the fact is that Slow Dancing in the Dark has been stuck in my brain for this entire pandemic. Slow Dancing in the Dark has been in my brain. And just as a refresher, while you guys are all debating, I'm still doing homework. I love this show so goddamn much. Sorry about the swear drop, but I love it that much. And the thing is that in watching that Slow Dancing in the Dark video, if you want to do the homework yourself as a viewer, listener, what have you, go to time code 146. There's a shot of Joji in a, spoiler, pool of blood. And his eyes in that, I'm like, that sells me on the loss of what's going to happen to Takaki. But when it comes to that, and because I'm casting young, and because I'm going with the yin and yang vibe of casting, I'm going to have to go with Felton because Charlie was just too close. I love him, man. I love his memes. I love Charlie Day so much. But there's no one I like more than seeing a villain, or at least a side villain, have his comeuppance. And there's something about his face. If there's actors you don't like and there's actors you love, it's all in the face. There's something about Felton, and I'm just like, oh, that guy needs to be punched in the face. And that's Ellis, man. The accent would work really great. Sorry to keep this long, but the accent would work really, really great, I think, with Hans Gruber as like, oh, they're bad because they're British, America, blah, 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 blah. So I don't know. I have to go with Felton just because, I don't know, that guy needs to be socked in the face, man.
Okay, Logan, what are your choices?
I mean, this was an intense debate. I mean, Charlie coming out of the gate, that was like coming out with an axe to the knees to start off the debate round. That was intense and that was entertaining to watch, I will say. I'll start with Takagi. I liked a lot of the debates for these. Curtis, actually, when it comes to George Takei, the one that I'm surprised you didn't bring up for him playing this kind of older businessman was his appearance on Heroes. He kind of plays this older statesman businessman in season 1, before the show got bad. But I kind of agree, that's really all I could see of him there. And Takei has two modes. He's either very, very friendly or he is cold as ice. And him in the business capacity, he always kind of plays cold as ice. So that didn't necessarily work for me. I wasn't a big fan of the idea of the young CEO. And George, I liked the visual and the look of Ryu Ishibashi. I thought the likability and charm that I've seen in the roles of his. I saw the 2 Grudge movies. I liked that. I liked what he brought to those. So I think he's a very good choice for Takagi in that. When it came to Harry, this one was actually a little bit easier for me to figure out. I have yet to watch Veep, so I haven't really seen any of Timothy Simmons or Simons or whatever it is. And George, I love Charlie Day so much so that I don't think I've ever seen him play a convincing, genuine jerk. He's always a character who's a jerk by accident. Is kind of the best way to. So him being just truly one of the worst people in that office is a little, I would feel kind of bummed if his character was to take the bullet to the head. So for me, that left Felton, and I really like what he would bring to the role. I've seen him in things like The Flash, like Curtis mentioned. So I think he'd bring a lot of fun to that part. So yeah, I would say Tom Felton for Harry and Ryu Ishibashi for Takagi.
This was an interesting round. I think my choices would have been, I actually would have gone with George Takei as Takagi, just because, yeah, he can play it a little serious, but I feel like as he gets on with age, I feel like he's getting a little bit more lovable and a little bit more warm, I guess would be the word for it. And Charlie, yes, I would be one of those people in the theater going, oh my, every time he showed up on screen, but then I'd calm down and enjoy him. And I would have gone for Charlie Day as Ellis just because he has great frenetic Coke energy. But my vote doesn't really matter. We got George's pick for Takagi and Curtis's pick for Ellis. On to our next round. Bear with me. Sorry, one second. All right, this one is also another double round. The first role that we're going to be looking at is Dwayne T Robinson. He is the deputy chief, and he's a stubborn and stern policeman for the LAPD that's overseeing the Nakatomi Plaza takeover by Hans Gruber. Though he is of high rank in the police department, he takes his job too cautiously and initially doesn't believe Al Powell's statements that they have an ally in saving the hostages, and he's originally played by Paul Gleason. The second role that we will be doing is Al Powell. Sergeant Al Powell is an LAPD cop that helps John McClane with the terrorist takeover of the Nakatomi Plaza. He makes a brief appearance in Die Hard 2 as well, where he assists McClane in his investigation at Dulles International Airport. And he is originally played by Reginald Johnson. So looking at Dwayne T Robinson and Al Powell, Curtis, who are your picks for these two?
All right, I'm going to start with Dwayne Robinson first. For Dwayne Robinson, my pick is going to be Adam Scott. Of course, most of us know Adam Scott's role in Parks and Recreation as Ben. He also was in movies like Krampus and Step Brothers. I think when I think about Dwayne T Robinson is like that, cliched, stereotypical chief of police who always yells at the lower cops for doing the wrong thing, but really Dwayne T Robinson has no idea what's going on or no idea how to handle this situation. And also, I think Adam Scott's really good at playing a pathetic guy who's somehow in some form or position of authority. He played a politician in Parks and Recreation, and one of the running gags of that show, he's constantly reminded what about him being a teenage mayor, and he failed to like run a ice skating rink business, and that's always been brought up, and always makes the character look pathetic. And even something like Krampus, he's a dad who's and a husband who is in a struggling marriage, who's in a dysfunctional family, and he feels like his whole world's collapsing, and he feels like, and he's drinking himself to his sorrows, and he just feels like pathetic all the time. I think Adam Scott could play that well. And in my actor for Al Powell is going to be Daveed Diggs. Now, most of us know Daveed Diggs as Lafayette / Thomas Jefferson in Hamilton, and also he has his roles in Blackish and his role in an underrated movie, Blind Spotting. He was terrific in Blind Spotting, and I think when you look at his roles in something like Blind Spotting, is the same type of character that's who Al Powell is, even though this is a guy who's very much his character is very much against the cops in Blind Spotting, but they are people who are both traumatized by their past. They are people who are they're lovable, they're warm, but they're at the same time they're firm. They could get hard, they could get strict when they need to, and they could stand up for themselves. And I think Daveed Diggs has experience in playing that type of role. So for Al Powell, Daveed Diggs, and for Dwayne T Robinson, Adam Scott.
All right, and George, who are your picks?
Okay, so I'll start with Al Powell, I guess. So my Al Powell, I'm going with Nicole Byer. She's a very funny comedian, probably best known for the show Nailed It, like a cooking show. She's the host of that. I was really struggling with an Al Powell. She just came to mind. I just really love her, and I feel like Al Powell is just such a lovable character, and she's very lovable, and she could bring a lot of humor to it, but also a lot of like warmth. And obviously, she befriends, or he or she befriends John McClane inside the building, and I know we're not really mentioning the original Die Hard, but Reginald Johnson, this was kind of the role that launched him onto shows like Family Matters. So I think for her, this could be kind of a cool breakout role for her to get more into acting and not just like, hosting like she's done on Nailed It. And then for Dwayne T Robinson, I'm going with one of my favorite actors, Bruce Campbell. Probably best known for like the Evil Dead movies. He's also had a long career in TV. He was on the show Burn Notice for a while. He pops up in movies like Spider-Man, pretty much any movie directed by Sam Raimi because they're such good friends. He's just so good at playing like dumb and like kind of like Curtis was saying, he, like Dwayne T Robinson is an authority figure, and you're like, how did this man get this job? Because all he does is make the wrong decisions the whole time. He's not quite a villain, but he's kind of making all the decisions that make things worse for John McClane inside the building. And again, I just feel like Bruce Campbell could bring some humor to it, because a lot of the things Dwayne T Robinson says are funny, like they're shooting at the lights and stuff like that. Bruce Campbell can play humor and play a dumb person who's also thinks he's the best and thinks that he's, I'm in charge around here and you listen to me, even though he's a complete idiot. So Bruce Campbell for Dwayne T Robinson and Nicole Byer for Al Powell.
All right, and Charlie, what are your choices?
Yeah, at this point, I'm about to say my pick for Dwayne Robinson, but because dang, you nailed it with Bruce Campbell. Now I just can't not see that. So my pick for Dwayne Robinson was going to be Kevin Dunn, and I could tell by my defense for Timothy Simmons based solely on Veet that's not going to go over so well. So I concede to George on that. But for Al Powell, I will fight hard for my man Lil Rel Howery, who has his own show now, and I was basing a lot of my decision on his performance in Get Out. He's the guy on the other end of the phone, like for that whole movie, and then he ends up at the end coming in and saving it. And that's kind of like a great mirror to what his character in Die Hard is. And I think he has incredible comedic timing. He's really warm and caring. And to be able to give him that script to really take time to flesh that out more so than it was in Get Out, I think would be an amazing opportunity for him. Short, succinct, Charlie out.
Right.
All right. So as for Kevin Dunn, of course, I don't know if Charlie has much to say about Kevin Dunn. It's gonna be pretty hard to fight against Bruce Campbell.
Yeah, no,
it's a great choice, George. I think the only thing I would say about Bruce Campbell is that when character Dwayne T Robinson, you have to hate him. You don't want to hate Bruce Campbell. When Bruce Campbell.
You kind of want to hate Bruce Campbell. If you've ever seen the TV show, he's not really a villain, but he's sort of an anti-figure of like keeping shit moving along.
Yep.
And he's really sort of brought down by his own hubris, which the character of Dwayne T Robinson really is that's his whole thing. It's just his own decisions blowing up in his damn face.
Even when Bruce Campbell's a bit of a scumbag, like he's like the jerky like ring announcer in Spider-Man, or when he's like the usher in Spider-Man 2, like, yeah, they're jerks, but you kind of love them for that. You kind of laugh with them a bit. I don't want that with Bruce Campbell, and with Bruce Campbell seems like the type of guy who would try to help John McClane. Like, he just has a type of personality. He doesn't seem more like an idiot. Like, yeah, I think Bruce Campbell's good at playing idiots, but even if he's an idiot, he's going to be an idiot who's like, okay, I'm going to do my best to make the situation easier for that hero in there who's fighting against terrorists on his own. I don't see him as an idiot who tries to make things worse. Even sometimes Bruce Campbell can come off as a super confident guy. Adam Scott, I just think you need someone who looks a bit pathetic. That's the thing with the actor Paul Gleason. Paul Gleason has that kind of that look, that demeanor to him that, like, how did this idiot get this figure of authority? He looks like a pathetic guy. There's this great scene where Hans Gruber goes on the radio with the police, and Al Powell answers first, and Al he sounds firm and straight, like, this is Sergeant Al Powell. But then Dwayne takes it from him, and then when he takes it away, he immediately sounds pathetic and like a scared little puppy, like, this is Sergeant Dwayne T Robinson here. That would be perfect for Adam Scott. As for the choices, and as for choices for Al Powell, with Lil Rel Howery, I just think I can't really, because with Al Powell, he could be a little bit funny. He has good one-liners, but I think you need, especially with his backstory, I think you need a little bit more drama in him. I haven't seen Lil Rel Howery be a little bit serious yet in a role, or
yeah, but wouldn't he be great at it though?
A little drama. I don't know.
I know he would. That's the thing. Like, we haven't seen
something like Get Out. That was mostly Get Out had comedic elements, but it was more horror than it was comedy. And even in a movie that was more horror, Lil Howery was still on the comedy side. I mean, when he shows up at the end and he saves Chris, and then he gets in the car, the first thing he says is a comedic line like, "I told you not to go in that house." I mean, he's more of a guy who cleanses the palate, who's a comic relief to relieve yourself from all the stress and from all the heaviness and Get Out.
But you can't deny that he is an absolutely crucial and integral part of him getting out. And I think that's exactly the sort of vibe he's already able to get himself into to play the character of Al Powell. And you're right, he hasn't really played anything super dramatic, but we just love to see it though. I feel like that's kind of a big part of this whole show is the whole, I know we have to make our arguments and everything, but the biggest argument of all is just, wouldn't you just love to see it? And I would, and I think others would too. And that's my point. And I've already spoken everything I can about Bruce Campbell. I love him.
As with Nicole Byer, I haven't seen much for acting. I don't know if she's acting, but I only know her from Nailed It. And again, I don't know, it would especially with someone like, I know, like with someone like Reginald Johnson, he did a little bit of acting before Die Hard. He did, even if it was like small little background roles. I mean, he was it was not much, but he's a cop in everything. He was a cop in Turner and Hooch and a cop in the Ghostbusters. He only had one line in Ghostbusters. But
Yeah. I think Turner and Hooch might have been after Die Hard. I think this was like what really got him roles, and then Family Matters also. Yeah.
yeah, so I don't know
You're
why
right. He's always a cop.
because again, with Al Powell, you need to carry a bit of heavy weight with you to be Al Powell, especially when he's telling John McClane about the story about the kid he shot and things like that, and trying to keep um uh, keep John McClane's sanity at an okay level, and to walk him through it, and to tell him everything's gonna be okay. You got this, dude. Type of person. So I think you need someone with a little bit more acting experience to play this type of role.
Right. Well, I would say for Nicole Byer, you both picked women to play John McClane, so I think it would be cool to have Nicole Byer as Al, and so it's kind of like these two women bonding over the radio. Or if you pick mine with Kumail Nanjiani, he's very funny as well. I think it would be cool to have these two comedians who can also be very warm and have dramatic chops as well, talking to each other over the radio. So I think her communication with any of the possible John McClanes would be really cool. Charlie, I appreciate you conceding with Bruce Campbell, but Kevin Dunn is a great actor and has been in a lot of great movies, so he would be cool as Dwayne Robinson. With Adam Scott, Curtis, I feel like it's funny how he's so likable that I've forgotten how many like jerks he's played, especially like in Step Brothers.
Yeah, I would be waiting for him to be like, "Oh, Powell, you see who's in charge here? Look at these abs. Look at these abs."
Yeah, I feel like Adam Scott is hilarious, and it has done dramatic work, but I was thinking maybe he's too young. He probably was the same age that Paul Gleason was. That's how much age doesn't make sense anymore. But I could almost see Adam Scott again as like an Ellis type. He'd be in the building hitting on Holly and doing cocaine and stuff. And he is good at playing a jerk, but I feel like Dwayne Robinson is a weird character because it's like he's not really the villain. He's not really the hero. He's just kind of getting in the way of everything, and more of like a villain to Al Powell almost. And like
he's supposed to represent the absolute bureaucracy and red tape that the establishment presents for in moments of crisis, I guess.
And you're right, he is kind of kissing Hans's butt over the radio and just not being very helpful at all, and also being very the same way with the FBI guys, being very coddling towards them and just kind of a coward basically. And I feel like Bruce Campbell could play that kind of person who is acting like he's in charge, but then he's very like
I don't want to see Bruce Campbell. I love Bruce Campbell too much, George. I don't want to see him as this little sniveling coward. Right. Incompetent police chief. I think
that's kind of who he played in the TV show of Evil Dead. Like the two, I don't know if either of you saw it, but he's hooked up with two other like younger people, and they're going around hunting like deadites and stuff. And he's the bumbling old man. Everyone else is figuring shit out.
I love the show. Yeah, he's definitely a boomer in that. Somebody mentioned that he's a boomer. Yeah.
Oh
so he could definitely play the dumb boomer who thinks he knows everything, and it's like you're way out of touch, man.
Oh yeah.
And with Little Rel, I also think that's a great choice, Charlie. I would love to see Little Rel in this role, but with Nicole Byer, I would just maybe argue the girl power thing. It would be cool to see her and a female John McClane, or her and Kumail, the kind of comedy aspect. Yeah. Missed.
Is that it?
Yeah.
I'm good.
All right. Good round, guys. This is a toughie because everybody had really good choices. For me, I have to agree with Charlie. It's kind of hard now that the bottle's been opened to not see Bruce Campbell in a role like this. So I'm going to go with George's pick for Dwayne Robinson. And when it comes to Al Powell, it's hard because I love every single one of your choices for different reasons. But the thing that really stuck out in my head, especially since we're in 2020, I love Nicole Byer. She is so funny. She would be a great source of comedic relief. And I think that you're right, whether it's two female, like whether it's going to be her and a female John McClane or even her and a male John McClane, I kind of like to have the idea of seeing the dynamic between the two of them. So I'm also going to go with George's pick for Nicole Byer as Al Powell. Johnny, what are your choices?
Yeah, again, more with this cat's out of the bag, you can't unscramble the eggs. Bruce Campbell for Dwayne straight up, and he's not such a bad guy that he like dies, like to a degree, he plays that smarmy too greatly. He does it too well, that I can't not see it. And he plays it dope. And he plays like like we're saying, that out of touch boomer. But for Powell, we got to pick someone who's everything you need out of a cop when you need them, and that is to be in charge and not a tyrant about it, and to be welcoming and all that kind of stuff. Well, you're safe. And Lil Ray, like he's too much. He's too good for me. Like I love that choice so well. I love Nicole Byer as well, but it has to be Lil Ray because I can't not see him in the uniform. I can't not see him just as this. It fits too well for me. The only thing is that I just trust him with the range, because we can go from him saying like one-liners and speaking for the audience in Get Out, but when Get Out, when he does that moment of TS mother effing A, like that does, he plays that so still, and I would look forward to seeing him pull off the range. So him.
Great. Johnny, can you remind me of your choice for Robinson? I'm sorry.
Robinson is Bruce Campbell.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Hunter, what are your choices?
All right, Dwayne, listen up. I thought George made a great point about Adam Scott, where Curtis, if you had been pitching him for Ellis, like that would have been a much stronger choice. I do like Kevin Dunn a lot for this part, but Charlie essentially gave it up to George, and I think we all have to give it up to George on this one. Bruce Campbell, this is as a character actor, this is like the perfect part for him to slide right into. So definitely Bruce Campbell for Dwayne. And as far as Al Powell, all three of these are really great choices. Curtis, I like you brought up, Daveed Diggs has like such a range as an actor, from everything from Hamilton to Blind Spotting to now Snowpiercer. He's just great. Nicole Byer is full-on delight. It's not an accident that when the first time we meet, if you're a fan of The Good Place, you'll know the first time that we meet someone from The Good Place on that show, spoilers, it is Nicole Byer, because she is a cinnamon roll. But I think Charlie made a lot of really good points for Lil Rel and how he would fit, I think, the heart of what we want here, as well as like really like tying it to like his big breakout role with Get Out, the guy on the phone, to like this evolution that we've seen. Now he's got his own show, and he's even was in a more like kind of dramatic movie just this year with Clouds. So that didn't factor into the arguments itself, but having that in the back of my mind just kind of confirmed what I was already feeling based on your arguments. I got to give it to Charlie for Lil Rel for Al Powell. Try saying Al Powell 5 times fast.
All right, and Logan, what are your choices?
Man, there was another one. I'll start with Dwayne. I think Adam Scott's a good pick, but I do agree that Dwayne is a better choice. Charlie, I wish you had debated a little bit more for Kevin Dunn. Heck, he plays this kind of authoritative jerk in one of my favorite movies, Chaplin. And at the very least, Bruce Campbell would most likely have still won the round. But it would be nice to hear a little bit more about Kevin Dunn. Lest we forget he is the dad in Transformers.
Small Soldiers.
And Small Soldiers, exactly. Rocking that authoritative dad part.
Odd he is.
I'd say Bruce Campbell for Dwayne. When it came to Al, it was kind of tricky. Like I love when Nicole Byer showed up in The Good Place, but I've never seen her doing drama. plain and simple, I haven't seen her do any kind of dramatic work. So it then kind of went between Daveed Diggs and Lil Rel, and honestly, between those two, I have seen more of Lil Rel. Daveed, really, all I've seen of him was his appearance in Hamilton, and wow, he is big, he is fun, he is bombastic, but I didn't really see a lot there where I'm like, that's Al Powell, and the kind of authoritative attitude that Lil Rel brought to Get Out, I think fit that argument really well. So I would say Charlie's choice for Al and George's for Dwayne.
All right, so with that, we have Bruce Campbell as Dwayne "The Rock" Robinson,
which might be
and
the first in CTTF history of over 100% approval rating since I gave up.
Honestly, yeah. And then we have Lil Rel Howery as Al Powell.
Which one are we doing next?
The next one's going to be Holly Genero. So Holly Genero, formerly Holly McClane, is the ex-wife of John McClane. Over the course of, never mind. She is a trigonist of the first and second film. She was an employee at Nakatomi Plaza and eventually went up the ranks as a businesswoman. She was held hostage when Hans Gruber took over the plaza and seized it to steal $640 million in negotiable bearer bank bonds. She was taken by Gruber personally when her identity was fully revealed, but was rescued by her husband at the end. And she was originally played by Bonnie Bedelia. Charlie, how about you start us off with who you want for Holly?
I'll just start this off with a funny anecdote. I checked Bonnie Bedelia into the hotel I work at once, and I was the only person at the desk who knew who she was. So I was wigging out, and she was super nice. So big shoes to fill, I guess will be that transition. So my choice will tie heavily into my pick for Don McClane as well as my director, who I will reveal later. But for my pick for Holly Genero, I picked Clea Duvall. Now, I am one of the other two panelists who chose to go with a female John McClane. I chose the name Don McClane, and I hate to be the you'll have to see guy for it to make sense, but the chemistry that these two people have together, I'll just say it. I have Natasha Lyonne as my Don McClane, but on her own, she has many other great acting merits too, Clea Duvall. She has a very stern but loving vibe about her that I feel like will really be hammered home with the performance of Holly Genero McClane, where she's very stern in her relationship, where I made this decision because it's about me. It's not necessarily about you, and your type of thinking is sort of going to break up this family. And I'm being very stern and being a figure of leadership during this hostage situation. Once Joe Takagi gets knocked out, she is sort of the one looked at to be in charge of what's going on and to be looking after everyone's self-interest. Like when there was the other businesswoman who was with child, and so she worked with the hostages to make sure she was comfortable while also not overstepping her bounds to something that would be considered an unreasonable request. She really can have the serious notes of the hostage situation versus the great romantic chemistry with who I've chosen as the Don McClane figure. They've worked together a lot, and I just think they're really opposite ends, and you could really see them working together as a unit throughout this movie in their individual scenes as well as the scenes together. She's one of my favorite actresses. I'm realizing I also chose a lot of Veep people in my picks, but that's kind of neither here nor there. If you're familiar with her, you already know. If not, she's fantastic. She's also in the I believe she's in Handmaid's Tale for a bit too, where she plays a really loving sort of figure who has to go through some sacrifices. And that's my succinct reason for picking Clea Duvall as Holly Genero McClane.
All right, and George, who's your pick?
Okay, so my pick for Holly is going to be Sarah Paulson. She's been acting for, I don't know, like 20 years now, and has kind of become famous for shows like American Horror Story. She's the new star of the show Ratched. She was in the movie Glass, the spinoff of, I can't think of the one with James McAvoy, Split. Spinoff of Split. She was in Ocean's 8. She's just a great actress. And as we've kind of mentioned, well, Bonnie Bedelia played Holly, and I feel like Holly, as written, is a good role, but I feel like having a great actress in the role will kind of elevate what is kind of an underwritten role. She's not quite the damsel in distress, but it is kind of about, John McClane getting his wife back. But she also has to be a woman who can stand up to John and like tell him that he's wrong. And you get this sense that like, yes, they're in love, but she can live without him. She's all about her career and her kids, and doesn't need him even though she loves him. So she's not like this dependent woman. She's not a damsel in distress. She's a very strong, independent woman that doesn't need John, but she still loves him. And I feel like Sarah Paulson can bring that to it. She's, can, kind of like Charlie was saying with Clea Duvall, she can be stern, but she can also be very loving and warm. And I think those are two qualities that that Holly needs to have. So yeah, I'm going with Sarah Paulson for Holly.
All right, and Curtis, who is your pick?
My pick for Holly Genero is going to be Alexandra Daddario. I just think Alexandra Daddario has that that personality, that vibe to her that it's the same that Bonnie Bedelia had with Holly. She seems super confident, super witty, super always. She seems like a person who's always in charge of things. She takes no BS from anyone, even in a horrible movie like Baywatch. She when Zac Efron tries to hit on her, she takes none of that BS. So you see that same vibe with someone when she's trying to deal with someone like Ellis, who we now have Tom Felton playing the role, and she just looks like she is a woman who knows how to take charge, who knows how to stand up for herself. I mean, like even like the character Polly is not a typical damsel in distress. She does what she has to do to keep herself, but most importantly, the workers on the floor safe. She's only kept in tap. She's only held for leverage under circumstances when Hans Gruber finally finds out that she and John McClane have a relationship, and he could get to John McClane through her. But up until that point, she knows how to handle herself. She knows how to deal with the bad guys, dealing with scumbags, from the pathetic ones from Harry Ellis to the more experienced, more classy ones like Hans Gruber. And we see that type with Alexandra Daddario in things like, again, even though it's a bad movie, Baywatch, and things like San Andreas, even in her role in True Detective, she seems like a woman who's mature beyond her years. So my choice is Alexandra Daddario.
All right, argue.
All right. Now, I will admit I don't know much about Clea Duvall. I mean, Charlie like pick a lot of people from Veep. I haven't watched Veep, so I don't know much about her performances. As with Sarah Paulson, I love Sarah Paulson as an actress. She's a great actress. I just think she's too big for this type of role. Because Holly's not much of a lead in this movie, and John and Han are the leads, but Sarah Paulson is in a point in her career right now where she's mostly taking more of the lead roles, even if it's a significant supporting role, a huge significant supporting role. I think Sarah Paulson I think where she is in her career, she's just too experienced for this type of role.
Well, I would say that Alexandra Daddario might be too big for this role also, and I think maybe a little too young. I was looking up like how old Bonnie Bedelia was and how old Holly's supposed to be. I think that, yeah, I think kind of like you were saying, I think she might want a more meatier role. I mean, so I guess so would Sarah Paulson, but I feel like she would just kind of elevate what's there, and it might even lead to like, giving Holly a little more to do because she's such a good actress. And with Clea Duvall, kind of like you were saying, Curtis, I know who she is. For whatever reason, The Faculty is always what comes to mind when I hear Clea Duvall, and obviously she's done a lot since then. So I'm not super familiar with her career. I could see her as Holly maybe a little more than Alexandra Daddario. But I just feel like, I don't know, I just feel like Sarah Paulson has personality and just the acting experience that I think would make Holly, very memorable character. And yeah, what do you guys think?
I think both of you actually did my job in pointing out the faults in either of your choices, where I think Alexandra Daddario might be a little too young and Sarah Paulson might be a little too old and too like a big name actor at this point for this. I feel like I may have actually shot myself in the foot a little bit, because my director, my John McClane, and my Holly Genero are like a 3 for 3, like they kind of explain themselves things. So I guess I'll have to do a little bit more explanation later as to why I chose those people. But I think if for George, your pick is a very good pick to pair with who I already know. I don't know if I'm breaking a rule of this show, but I already know who your pick was for John McClane, and I really agree. But in terms of if we're going to switch this and turn it into an LGBTQ story, I think the downfall for that would be on Curtis's end for picking people who aren't actually representing that that family, that group of people. Whereas my pick of Clea Duvall and, who I'll debate later, Natasha Lyonne for Don McClane, are two absolute icons in the LGBTQ community, and they've proven it time and time again. And I think it would be something that would, I'm not going to say bring a new audience, but I will say bring a new excellent form of representation to the roles of Holly and John/Don McClane.
I mean, but we're not up to that point.
So I'm pointing out my flaws.
We're not up to that point yet. I mean, I know two of us chose women.
I know. Yeah, that's.
But I think we're just arguing about who would just make the best.
Someone else brought that up earlier, so that's why I kind of brought it up now.
Yeah. I think it's arguing who would make the best for now, like the best character for Holly. I just think Sarah Paulson, she is nothing to do about her age. I don't think her age has nothing really to do with it in this time. I just think it's more of where she is in her career. And I think, right now, Alexandra Daddario is not much in big blockbuster movies. She's more in a lot of streaming movies, a lot of direct-to-demand movies right now at the moment. But something like this could really help raise her stardom, because she is better than what most people perceive her as. Whereas again, Sarah Paulson, I just think people know already that she's a tremendous actress. She's in a lot of high-profile stuff. Again, with American Horror Story, she was in Glass, she was in Ocean's 8, with big name actors. She's in the Netflix show Ratchet. She's already up there in her career, and I think Sarah Paulson would in a movie like this, she would want a more prominent role than being, even though the character of Holly is not the typical damsel in distress. She's not, the typical, oh, save me. I just think even then, she wouldn't want that type of role.
Right. Yeah. Again, I feel like Alexandra Daddario might not want what's considered kind of a supporting role at this point. And I also just feel like we're supposed to believe that Holly has, started a family. She has kids. She's a career woman now. And I mean, Alexandra Daddario is, early 30s. So it's possible that she's accomplished all this. I just, again, feel like that she just doesn't fit for Holly. Yeah. What was that?
She's 34. She's in her mid 30s. Yeah. And at the time, Lucy and John McClane Jr., they're like toddlers. They're like 4 and 5. So I could easily, if Alexandra Daddario was playing Holly, she'd have to be 29 when she had her first child. So that's pretty average. So I don't see age as that much of an issue in this type of round.
Yeah. I mean, kind of like Charlie was saying, I was trying to cast Sarah Paulson because I think she would fit with my pick for John McClane, but she would also fit with your picks as John McClane. So I think she would just be she would work with any John McClane that we throw in there. And I know you were saying that Alexandra Daddario kind of plays characters that are kind of like, she doesn't take any BS, but I just feel like Sarah Paulson has more of that. Like she can be very warm, but also very like, you know, I haven't seen Nurse Ratched yet, but from what I know of Nurse Ratched, she's, you know, like this kind of authority
He's
figure.
pretty legit in Nurse Ratched. My mom is watching it, and I've seen some scenes, and I'm kind of against the whole project anyways because the whole reboot origin story nonsense. But she's kind of killing it.
Right.
I will say that.
Right. Yeah. So I again, just like not knowing a lot about Clea Duvall and just thinking Alexandra Dario, I don't think really works in this role. That's, you know, that's all I got for now.
Another thing that I want to bring up is because we already casted Tom Felton as Harry Ellis. I mean, this is the guy who was constantly trying to hit on Holly Genero. I mean, I don't want to sound ageist or anything, but I just find it. And there's guys who hit on older women. There's guys out there that are into older women, but I just can't see someone like Tom Felton hitting on Sarah Paulson. It just seems kind of odd and
that just seems like a personal thing, though.
It seems kind of odd and out of place. I don't know. I just see him more hitting on someone like Alexandra Daddario because she's. I mean, Sarah Paulson is beautiful too, but Alexandra Daddario, I think she just has that image of that woman that all these like guys, all these lapdogs, as Charlie would put it, would try to make a move on. And I just think that would, especially seeing how Alexandra Daddario and Tom Felton are a little bit more close to the age, I just see that more as a fit.
Right. Well, I can see Tom Felton using the word MILF as well. So.
Oh yeah, no. Tom Felton strikes me as someone who would. I could easily see Tom Felton going that route, especially with
a beautiful older woman. He could be, he'd start hitting on the older ladies.
Oh yeah,
see that.
Anyway.
I mean, everybody would be hitting on Alexandra Daddario for certain, but I think he would hit on Sarah Paulson and hit on Clea Duvall. I believe it.
Yeah.
I guess that's all I have to say about my arguments.
Final statements. All good.
Mm.
All right, Logan. What are your picks?
Ooh, this was a good debate. I like these all around. Charlie, I am pretty well known with Clea Duvall. I've seen her in a couple things. She's in Zodiac, which is a favorite movie of mine.
Oh God, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. But as I was kind of looking through and kind of hearing the debates, first off, Curtis, yeah, I kind of agree with Charlie. It sounds like a personal preference saying that you wouldn't hit on Sarah Paulson because she's gorgeous, and I could easily see her carrying that attitude of I'm going to make my own life out here in the city, and John, Dawn, whatever we decide for that. If you don't like it, I'm sorry, but this is what I'm going to do. And Sarah Paulson kind of has that vibe. She seems like she could say it friendly to the point where it's like, I'm friendly, up until the point where it's like, John, Dawn, whatever it is, I'm leaving. I have to do this. You're going to deal with it, and that's how it's going to be. And I could see Sarah Paulson bringing that kind of authority to it. So yeah, I'd go with George's choice.
All right, and Johnny, what are your choices?
I'm trying to remember. There we go. Bird Box. When Sarah Paulson was in Bird Box, her lightheartedness, but her sternness and her not dealing with her sister stuff, that was good. I'm going with Sarah Paulson. She might be too big, but if I were an exec, as we're playing in this, I would 100% call her first. I loved her in Blue Jay. I love if you ever get a chance to see Blue Jay, it's one of my top movies of that year. She is a force to be reckoned with, and I don't think Holly takes any crap. I don't think Sarah Paulson takes any crap. Clea Duvall, I wish I thought more of her beyond being a director for Happiest Season and The Faculty and a bunch of other stuff. Alex Daddario, she seems a little too centerfoldy. I need to see more of her work. I'm sorry, but it has to be Sarah Paulson.
All right. This is hard because these are all fantastic ladies in and of their own rights. I do agree. I feel like Alexandra might be a little bit too much of, I guess, kind of like what Johnny said, a little bit more of a centerfold, like super hot, super gorgeous, that I can't really see her being like a working mom. Because yeah, she might be in her mid 40s, but she looks like she's in her early 20s. She looks very good for her age. So for me, it was between Clea and Sarah Paulson. I do know more of Sarah Paulson's work. I've seen, like, of course, like The Faculty and But I'm a Cheerleader. So I know that Clea does have steady acting ability behind it. But I think I'm gonna go with Clea just because, as much as I love Sarah Paulson, I feel like she might steal too much of the show. Just because she shines in everything she does, whether she's a supporting character or the main character, she kind of steals the show. So my pick was gonna be with Clea. Hunter, what are your picks?
Sorry, I was lost in a Google image search trying to do my best to judge this round. 3 great picks all around, everybody. Man, yeah, all 3 of them I could see killing the part. I think Charlie, with Clea Duvall, I see her almost as like, I'd be wondering like, why doesn't she just get up and like start fighting back herself? You know, she's got almost like that much of an edge. Curtis, I think they dinged you a bit on the Alexandra Daddario, you know, being, I mean, Johnny's coming the centerfold, like is I think kind of nails what everybody has been sort of saying, like, she's almost like distractingly hot, right? Like I'm getting lost in my words right now because I'm just lost in those eyes. But Sarah Paulson, she's got the talent, she's got the cred, and yeah, she's become a big name, but she's like TV big, right? Like she hasn't had a ton of breakout success in film, and where she has been a support or part of an ensemble. So I don't think that this is necessarily too small a role for her, especially with the argument that George made, saying that she would elevate what is already on the page, and that was really what clinched it for me. So my vote goes to George for Sarah Paulson.
Logan, can you remind me what your choice was?
Sarah Paulson as well.
Okay, cool. So it's Sarah Paulson. Thank you. All right, so we're going to be moving on to our next round, which is going to be a double round, where we're going to be casting John McClane and Hans Gruber. So, of course, John McClane is the main protagonist. He's an Irish-American detective lieutenant with the New York City Police Department. He's played, of course, by Bruce Willis. He worked briefly with the LAPD, and he's been a police officer since 1977. He is separated from his wife, Holly, who is currently using her maiden name. When he goes to try to see her at a party, of course, he is wrapped up in the hostage situation and has to save the day. And Hans Gruber, who is our main antagonist, he is an internationally feared German terrorist. He was the mastermind behind the Nakatomi Plaza heist, where he used a gang of heavily armed terrorists to take over the company's Christmas party and attempt to steal $640 million in negotiable bearer bank bonds inside the building's vault. He, of course, is played by the iconic Alan Rickman. So we're basically going to be casting our protagonist and our antagonist this round. And let's start off with George. Who are your picks for these two?
Okay, so I guess I'll do Hans first. So for Hans, I picked Idris Elba. He's just a great actor, and again, I'll stop trying to reference the original movie, but you know, Alan Rickman was known for theater, and this was kind of his breakout role. And I feel like part of the reason we love Hans is because it's such a well-written villain, but it's also such a well-acted villain, at least by Alan Rickman. And I feel like Idris Elba, he's shown that he can play villains in movies like you know, Hobbs and Shaw. Like he was one of the best parts of that movie. He kind of like, you know, played it very straight and didn't like, you know, make it seem ridiculous like it was. For whatever reason, a movie that came to mind was No Good Deed. He's very like charming in that. He's a charming villain who's like hitting on Taraji P. Henson in the movie and like invading her home. I just feel like he can play this kind of slimy but very charming and very intelligent villain that's required for Hans. And then for John McClane, I decided to go with Kumail Nanjiani, who's one of my favorite actors and comedians. As you may or may not know, he's become very buff now. For a new Marvel project, I wrote it down. It was anyway. He's for a new Marvel project. He's gotten very buff. Or Eternals, and he's just very funny, and he can do drama and comedy, and I feel like he could pull off the action chops. He was in that action comedy Gruber that came out, I think, last year. And I think this would be kind of a cool way for him to kind of transition into doing more action stuff and doing more like dramatic stuff while also using his comedy chops and saying the one-liners and being very funny. So Kumail Nanjiani for John, and then Idris Elba for Hans.
All right, and Curtis, who are your picks?
All right, for Hans Gruber, I'm choosing the awesome Tom Ellis. Of course, if you are a fan of the Netflix TV show Lucifer, you know Tom Ellis plays the devil, Lucifer himself, on that show. I just think Tom Ellis oozes all the swagger that you're supposed to have in order to play Hans Gruber. He's cool, he's calm, he's collected, and he doesn't show his rage unless you build it up, just like the Lucifer character. He's conniving. He could be conniving. He could be charismatic. He could be charming. He could be classy. I think Tom Ellis just hits all those check marks. As for John McClane, I am going to choose Jessica Rothe, whereas most know Jessica Rothe as the lead in the Happy Death Day movies. I think just from her being in those movies and her character she plays in Happy Death Day is like her audition reel to play John McClane. She's this she's just in Happy Death Day. She's this average college girl, the stereotypical blonde Caucasian college girl who is wrapped up in this whole insane time loop where whenever this guy with a baby mask kills her, she wakes up and she has to live that day all over again. And you see the stress on her, the pain on her, and all the anxiety on her, and she uses that, and she takes all that stress and anxiety and makes a little bit of humor out of it. She like there's one day in the movie where she doesn't bathe, she doesn't try to clean herself up, she's just over it, she's just sick of it. I can see her taking that character and putting it into something like John McClane, or in this case, as I'm calling her, Dawn is a good name, but I'm calling her, and my one, Jennifer McClane. So yeah, Jessica Rothe for John McClane and Tom Ellis for Hans Gruber.
All right, and Charlie, who are your choices?
So I'll do Hans Gruber first. So of Angry Birds 2 and Frozen 2 fame, those are literally the first two movies it says on his Wikipedia. I have Sterling K. Brown. Isn't that nonsense? The first page of his Wikipedia says Angry Birds 2 and Frozen. What disrespect. Anyways, Sterling K. Brown, much along the same sort of line as Idris Elba's awesome pick. I think Sterling K. Brown is a little more, has a bit more of a poker face, where Hans Gruber is really sort of straight this whole time. You can't really tell what he's thinking, what he's going to do next. That's one of the things that makes him such a scary character, like when he absolutely just blows Joseph Takagi out of the water, and when he's sort of playing his hand with Harry Ellis in the office while on the phone with John McClane. What really drove me to pick him was, it seems kind of silly, but he had a bit part on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, where it's a bottle episode where the whole episode takes place in a interrogating room, where he's a dentist who's convicted of murder, and Andy Samberg's character and his commander are trying to figure out ways to get him to crack, because he's so snide and elusive and has an answer for everything, and they eventually get him to crack. And his sort of, I'll say almost Heath Ledger Joker-esque like stoicness really struck out to me for the role of Hans Gruber. So I'll shut up about him. And I chose the name Don McClane I chose another LGBTQ icon, Natasha Lyonne, of How I Married, But I'm a Cheerleader, and Orange is the New Black, and most recently, Russian Doll. First of all, I thought she would have good chemistry with my pick for Holly, who is Clea Duvall, since they've worked together for so much and are BFFs IRL. But I think she would equally have that sort of chemistry with put into a situation with Sarah Paulson. She has this sort of gruff attitude about her that I think you absolutely need, whether you cast the John McClane character as male, female, non-binary, any thing. I think it has to have this sort of contrast between Holly Genero's sort of prim, proper, I'm a businesswoman, and this sort of other sort of traditional gender role, whatever that gender happens to be, because that's kind of what the whole falling out of them two is about. And Natasha Lyonne, she has this great voice, just gruff, really no bullshitting. She doesn't do that many stunts on like Orange is the New Black. She does actually a couple in Russian Doll, but she can, anytime she's in a room, I'm watching her, because she steals every performance she's in. And I would love to see her go back and forth with little Rel on the comms, and I would love to see her absolutely chew out Bruce Campbell as Dwayne Robinson. And I think she would bring this great gruffness to it, while also showing that she loves the people around her. She loves Holly. Like, she is forming this great bond with Al Powell. And he cares. He has a tough exterior that we slowly see melted down throughout the film. And I just think Natasha Lyonne is going to be a perfect choice for that. Also, keeping with my theme of just throwing LGBTQ icons on the screen for this.
Fight.
Okay.
You're all terrible people. No, I'm kidding.
I'm gonna start with this. First of all, I'm liking all the other choices for Hans Gruber, even though I'm gonna do my best to fight them. Charlie, I cannot believe. I think when you brought up Sterling K. Brown, you brought up some of the same arguments that Logan brought up when he was championing for Sterling K. Brown in The Shining. I think he brought up that same Brooklyn Nine-Nine episode. So I'm going to redeem myself.
Really? I didn't see that one. It's so good, man.
And try to redeem myself and try to fight against that again. I'm sorry. I know I love Kumail Nanjiani. I love him. I love The Big Sick. I love his performances. I just can't see him a John. I know back in the 80s, people had the same problem with Bruce Willis. I know that's going to be brought up. I know, but maybe it's because I'm used to Die Hard. I'm used to watching it so many times. I'm used to Bruce Willis in the role. But even before me seeing it for the first time, if that was me back in the theaters and while other people are seeing the Die Hard trailer and people are laughing, it's like, oh, what's this guy from Moonlighting doing in this action movie? I'd be like, what are y'all smoking? He looks perfectly fine and fitting for this type of role. I don't know. Maybe audience goers in the 80s were a lot more stupider than audience moviegoers today. But
the word you're looking for is cocaine use. I
know Kumail Nanjiani has been casted in a Marvel superhero action movie. I know he's got a great bod now, but we haven't seen that yet. We don't know what he's going to bring to Eternals yet because we haven't seen the movie yet. And also, we don't know what type of character he is going to be in the Eternals. Is he going to be this rough and gruff action guy in the Eternals? Or is he still going to be kind of like still this Kumail Nanjiani type of character, just with a superhero action movie type of body? So we don't know that yet. We don't know what he's going to bring to that role yet. So I'm kind of skeptical of what he's going to bring to someone like John McClane, because John McClane is this rough, gruff, average Joe who doesn't pay attention to things like luxury, or doesn't take BS. I mean, this is the character who got into a limo and sat in the front seat. No one does that. No one does that but John McClane. He doesn't care about luxury. He doesn't care about all that stuff. I think Kumail Nanjiani has that type of character where if he got a limo, he would sit in the back seat. For Jessica Rothe, again, I think just as her role in Happy Death Day, I think is sort of like a blueprint of what she could bring to someone like John McClane, because she goes through a lot of she goes through a lot of like death-defying set pieces, and she cheats death a lot in that film until the killer kills her, and she has to go through it again and try to solve how to get out of this time loop.
But she dies a whole bunch trying to do it, though. John McClane does.
She figures it out, though. I mean, you can kind of equate it to John being beat up by the terrorists and being beat up by one buff guy, and having to walk on glass and stuff. I mean, it's kind of like equating to him losing a lot of health bars while he's in the Nakatomi building.
Right.
I'm sorry. Can you once again remind me who? George, you had Idris Elba and Kumail Nanjiani, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
I'm just getting who had who mixed up. And Curtis, you had Jessica Rothe and Tom Ellis, right?
Yes.
Okay. I do love your choice for Tom Ellis, man. I just want to see him in everything. I would watch him eat soup out of a shoe. But I think the thing with I think Tom Ellis doesn't hold Tom Ellis, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think he holds his cards enough to the chest enough to really pull off what was scary about Hans Gruber. You see the scene where he and Joe Takagi are walking down and Hans Gruber's making offhand remarks about his suit. Like, wait a second, he knows about suits? Like, I can't tell anything about him, but he just kind of let a little bit of a card slip. I think Tom Ellis would come in and be sort of bombastic, almost like a Heath Ledger Joker character when he's going into Wayne Tower for the hostage situation there. There's not enough poise. There's not enough, when Hans Gruber, the first thing he does before he says a word, he pulls a prepared statement out of his pocket. Like, he is prepared for this. Tom Ellis just gives off way too much of a chaotic energy, which I absolutely love about him. But for this role, I just don't think it's super appropriate. Jessica Rothe, I do love Happy Death Day, but I just don't see the chemistry between her and Sarah Paulson in a way that if we are going to be swinging this into a LGBT faction story, that I would find believable. And I think that since with Kumail Nanjiani, I mean, it hasn't, what's said has been said. I see him as comedy. I know he has the chops to do these bigger roles, and I can't wait to see him actually do it, but I just wouldn't give him the chance with the name Die Hard attached to the project. And Idris Elba, I can't say a goddamn bad thing about Idris Elba. I cursed, but I really can't say a bad thing about him. He's another person I would watch eat soup out of a shoe. But he's scary, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry,
go ahead, yeah.
Oh, I was going to say Sterling K. Brown. I think every time I see Idris Elba, he's kind of like going up over the top, but he can also perform these super low moments. But I think Sterling K. Brown makes those transitions better from low to high to low. It's not as abrupt, which is something that isn't scary about Hans Gruber. He never snaps. He never has these moments where it's like, oh God, he's scary with this low tone, with this transitional sort of vibe he gives off. I don't know. I'm very bad at explaining it, but.
Right. Well, Hans does have a few moments where he snaps. You're right. He stays very calm and collected until things aren't going so well for him, and then he does lose his temper a lot. And I feel like Idris Elba could do that. He kind of has this seething anger that's about to explode, and I feel like he could do that. Tom Ellis, I have seen some of Lucifer, and he is very, very smooth. He might almost be too likable because he turned the devil into this very likable, character. I mean, he's the hero of the show. And with Sterling K. Brown, I think the main thing I've seen him in is People versus O.J. Simpson, and he was just so kind of endearing in that show and so nice. I'm sure he's a great actor, and like you've mentioned, has played villains before, but I just think of him as just kind of a nice guy. So I would just argue Idris Elba. I know he's played a lot of villains, and at this point, maybe he's getting sick of villains, but I feel like Hans is such a great villain. This could be kind of like the culmination for him, his great villain role. A lot of times he takes a bad script and turns it into an okay or a great performance from a not very good script. but I feel like if he had a really good script, he could really, you know, be very memorable and would be very intimidating to any of our John McClanes, you know. And I'm not sure Tom Ellis and Sterling K. Brown would be as intimidating. And then for McClane, yeah, with McClane and Natasha Lyonne as scripted, I feel like she'd be better as McClane. It's tough because it's like it was written as a man, but you wouldn't have to change much to make it a woman necessarily. So I could see Natasha Lyonne doing it. Jessica Roth, not as much. It's interesting, Curtis, that you said it was kind of her audition for Die Hard. Like I wouldn't have thought that. I really liked her in Happy Death Day. She is kind of playing like a jerk in that. It's and John McClane has that aspect of his personality. But again, I think she might be too young. I don't know. It would be interesting since we've cast Sarah Paulson to have like a younger John McClane who's kind of maybe like feels like this woman or this, you know, the person she's married to is older than her and more successful than her, and maybe she's jealous. So I don't know. I feel like Natasha Lyonne would fit better if we're going with female McClane, but for Kumail, I forgot to mention Big Sick, but yeah, I feel like he showed that he can do romance in that, and he can be kind of a jerky boyfriend / husband that you still like. And then it's almost like
he didn't bring that up because that's what I thought the whole time when you said Kumail Nanjiani.
Yeah. I kind of just brought up Kumail, assuming everyone knew who he was, but it's like, well, obviously. But yeah, I feel like that's almost like his wife. Instead of his wife going into a coma, his wife is being taken over by terrorists or by, you know, robbers. So I'll send you pictures of Kumail, Curtis, so you can see how hot he is now.
I've seen it.
Hot.
I've seen it.
Send him the hot one.
I'm just kidding. Yeah.
I've one last thing to add. I love Sterling K. Brown and Idris Elba, and I wouldn't mind seeing them in this role. I just think since they're both, I mean, I don't know how many. I'm sure there's Black Germans. There's Black French people, there's Black English people, so I think there's Black Germans. But I think just to add a more verisimilitude to it, I want to choose more guy who's more white European looking, and on top of that, I think I wouldn't be offended by it, but I think there would be a group of people who would have a problem of having a Black male actor playing a terrorist character. Not that the two did anything wrong. I'm just saying that there might be a group of people out there. I wouldn't be the ones offended. I just think there'd be.
I mean, like, think about what was going on in the 80s when the movie was made. Like, they're East Germans. They're like East and West Germany is a thing. That's why, like, most terrorists in like movies back then were like the Germans who are taking people hostage. But like, I feel like terrorism as a word has been so redefined in what it means in America that it, like, those labels don't apply anymore. They don't. Like,
and also Hans isn't a terrorist. He's not.
It's all a ruse. He's a bank robber.
Yeah. And another thing with like Kumail as John McClane, I think that would be good to kind of break the stereotype that, you know, Muslims are terrorists kind of thing, to make him the hero. Even though there's terrorism going on, but yeah.
Oh yeah. I didn't want to add to a little more about Jessica Roth. I think just out of the two actors, Natasha Lyonne and Kumail Nanjiani, I think Jessica Roth has that more of that edge to her that Bruce Willis had when playing John McClane. I could see her doing some of the stuff when he's talking to himself, like the "come out to the coast" thing, or also like when she has an argument with Holly. I could see her say like "Great, Jennifer, great job," and talking to herself in the mirror. Because she already did that type of stuff in Happy Death Day, and I think again, out of the three actors, I think Jessica Ralph more has that edge to her, and that's all I have to say.
All right.
I'm gonna stop talking for the sake of time. But
this was interesting. You guys made really good choices. I like everybody for different reasons.
What a beautiful and gorgeous statement, Jessa.
I know, thank you. That's all I do. It's just, yeah, for me, I feel like any of the actors that you pick for Hans Gruber could do this role and do it amazingly, and they would just be very different performances, but it could still tie in and fit with the story really well. Just like with Tom Ellis, I thought, like, because I'm like all caught up on Lucifer, and like, you know, he kind of plays a dual role in this new season. So you could kind of see like when Hans is pretending to be a hostage as opposed to the actual like leader, like I could see him pulling that off. With Sterling K. Brown, he touches anything and it's gold. He's so good. Albeit like me, I haven't seen him play the villain too often. That's not to say that he can't, because the few roles that I have seen him played in, he's nailed it. But when George said Idris Elba and he brought up No Good Deed, I literally, like, I could see, because that's another movie where he kind of plays a dual role where it seems like somebody not threatening and then he's the scariest person on the planet. And just with that, like, big booming, like, velvety voice, I could really see him being this bad guy. So I think for Hans Gruber, as tough as it is, I'm going to go with Idris Elba. And then for John McClane, these were interesting choices, all great. Yes, Kumail might have a comedy background, but lest we forget, I think he's going to be in the Immortals. He's going to be in an action thing soon, and that's what he got. Yeah, or Eternals, and he's all beefy. So that I feel like is a huge show of like dedication of like he's trying to kind of step out of that. Love Jessica Ralph. Like she's another one that like, even like if you saw that terrible series Utopia on Amazon, it's a terrible show. She is the only good part about it. She nails everything she does. And then Natasha Lyonne, she's just like, since being in Orange is the New Black, she's really just kind of come into her own. For me personally, it was between Natasha and Jessica. And it was really hard because I could see both of them doing this. But I think literally by just a hair, I think I'm going to go with Jessica just because she's shown that she's done physical stuff, whether like in Happy Death Day, she's done a lot more physical stuff. And I haven't really seen much of that from Natasha's line of work. Not to say she can't do it. I just would probably put my faith in somebody that I know can pull that off really well. So I'm going to go with Jessica for John McClane. Logan, what are your choices?
Oh, this is a tricky debate round all around. I mean, not only are these two like really big characters, but you know, y'all chose fantastic actors all around. I'll start with Hans. Curtis, you're right. It was kind of interesting to hear some of the same arguments I was making for Sterling K. Brown for The Shining, coming back around for why he would work as.
Who did you cast him as in The Shining?
We had
who? Oh, Jack Torrance.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be awesome. I would have voted for that.
So like I could see Sterling pulling a lot of the stuff you were talking about. Idris Elba, I feel like I don't know. There's something about him as villains. He always is a bit too villain too quick. I don't know. Or you know, he's almost too. I don't know. There's something about him that just didn't quite feel right, I guess, with me for the part. But the one that I kept circling back to for Hans, honestly, was Curtis's choice with Tom Ellis. Especially with him being in Lucifer and the fact that in this most recent season he has done the accent switch kind of thing that you know that scene with Hans and McClane would require. So I think Tom Ellis is who I would go with for Hans. And then McClane was really, really hard. Like all three of these are great. Like but like I love Kumail Nanjiani, but I haven't seen him in enough stuff to really know that he could do this part, if I'm being honest. And then hilariously, it comes down to the Battle of the Time Loop Girls with, you know, Happy Death Day and Russian Doll.
Oh my God, I didn't put that together.
Like, I realized that too as the debate was going. I was like, oh, okay, yeah.
Oh my God, that's funny.
And while I love Jessica Roth and what she brings to Happy Death Day, there's something about how seasoned a cop McClane is supposed to be already by the time all this happens, that she feels a little bit too young. It feels almost like the argument we were having with Jaws for who was going to be, you know, our main character for that. So for me, I think that made Jessica Roth a little too young. So I think Natasha Lyonne would bring the right amount of gruffness and age to the part that would be believable. Whereas like she's already had this life with Holly. It has kind of gone on the rocks. She's trying to get it together. And I think she kind of bring that attitude to it. So yeah, I would say Natasha Lyonne for McClane and Tom Ellis for Hans.
So with that, we actually have a tie for both John and Hans with Hunter's choices accounted for. So Johnny, it's all on you.
Oh shit.
Oh, which
Who
one?
are your
Oh boy.
choices?
Oh boy.
Because Hunter
What,
went with Sterling K. Brown and Kumail Nanjiani.
Come on. Okay. So he chose Kumail and Sterling.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Well,
each one has one vote.
well, yeah, I'm in the middle of the debate. I was like, this is gonna happen. I don't know what to do. I don't know why I sound like John Madden. Boom, tough act. Anyway, so the big thing here is to say that this movie on paper is what it is. This movie takes place in 2020. So this is a Trump America versus a Reagan America. And how these villains are portrayed with playing it close to the chest, the superficiality of Hans and what it means to cast an LGBT icon, all this other stuff. I'm going to try to make it as simple as possible and just straight up go with saying that Hans has to be Ellis. To me, Hans is Tom Ellis, just because the homework that I did, all the debate that went through, it was so close with Sterling K. Brown because of to me personally, my memory of him playing Christopher Darden in American Crime Story for the OJ stuff. Like, he was so good. And, Angry Birds, mwah. No, but as far as McClane is concerned, I like to go with the no BS. The Jessica Roth was close, but again, for me, too young. But I'm gonna have to go with Natasha, mainly for the fact that the scene in which Holly and John fight, and he bangs his head against the side of the door, knowing that he's wrong and knowing that he's just the everyman to what American audiences have to see, that the LGBT is just as everyone else. Love is love and all that stuff. So I think that having and casting an LGBT icon would be really beneficial to here. And for the homework that I've done, I haven't seen Natasha since American Pie. All I remember is that I think she had a little bit of substance abuse back in the day. And that is someone who can convey that they have their regrets and they have their thing, and they know that they want to do the right thing, or what conventionally is the right thing for these audience. So I'm gonna have to go with Tom Ellis and Natasha.
Okay, so with that, it is Tom Ellis and Natasha Lyonne as our Hans Gruber, and I guess Don McClane would be it for this. All right, guys, so we are on to our last round, which is going to be for our director. The original Die Hard was directed by John McTiernan. He's best known for his action films, and probably the three films that he's best known for that he directed back-to-back were Predator, Die Hard, and The Hunt for Red October. And he also did Die Hard with a Vengeance and The Thomas Crown Affair. So keeping that in mind, we are going to be moving on to who you think should be the director for this. Curtis, how about you start off with your choice?
Okay, let me see if I go pull this up here. So my choice for director is the group duo known as Radio Silence, aka Matt Bettinelli Oppen and Tyler Gillett. Now, if you don't know who Radio Silence are, these two guys, they directed one of the most surprising, entertaining horror films of last year, Ready or Not, which was tons of fun. And they're also hired on to direct. Were hired on to direct the next Scream movie, Scream 5, which is funny enough named Scream. I don't know why they named it that. It's confused a lot of people. But anyway, they're doing Scream 5. And these are the perfect guys to do a type of movie like Die Hard, because it is a movie that has a lot of action, a lot of suspense, a lot of tension, a lot of thrills, but with a little comedy peppered into that. And that's the same vibe you get from the Scream movies and you get with Ready or Not. And with someone Ready or Not, they already had a story where one individual has to survive in an enclosed setting from a bunch of people who are trying to kill her. And that's the same kind of thing with Die Hard. Ready or Not and Die Hard have a lot of similarities with them. So I am going to go with Radio Silence as my choice for director.
All right, Charlie, who is your choice?
I feel like with the wrapping up of my trifecta of choices for John McClane, Holly Genero, and the director, it sort of comes to the cherry on the top for me to pick Jamie Babbitt as the director for this new movie. Also of iconic LGBT fame, directing episodes of The L Word, Nip Tuck. She did Malcolm in the Middle, a lot of Gilmore Girls, and most recently a good portion of Russian Doll, which is mainly where I'm drawing from with this. The intensity of her direction in Russian Doll, also with her familiarity of already working with for years and years and years since But I'm a Cheerleader, Natasha Lyonne. I think what would be elevated by choosing her as a director would be the true blue romantic experience and progression of the characters of Dawn and Holly. I think if we're going to go ahead and make the route of changing this to an LGBT story, that can't be a side thought. It can't be a gimmick. It can't be used to pander. And I think with the director of Jamie Babbitt, she's going to be able to elevate those scenes to create the different subtext that is necessary for a fully developed relationship and on-screen progression of those characters. Yes, she hasn't done any real action or anything like that, but some of the sequences in Russian Doll, just in the creative cinematography, are just absolutely mind-blowing. She's also done a couple episodes of The Orville. I know I'm pandering heavily to Jess with that. Well, what else was it? One of my favorite movies of hers is called The Itty Bitty Titty Committee. It's really great. But I think if we're going to be doing the transition to turn this into an LGBT story, we need to go big or go home and have a director that's really going to do justice for that. Proven time and time again over almost pretty much the last 30 years. And I think the only choice is Jamie Babbitt.
All right, and George, who's your pick?
All right, so my choice for director is Chad Stahelski. He is a former stuntman who recently has become famous as a director for directing all the John Wick movies. So, you know, unlike Curtis and Charlie, I was trying to find someone who has proven that they can direct action very well. And, you know, a lot of my favorite action movies are from the 80s and the 90s, and I feel like with John Wick, Chad Stahelski has managed to make action movies now that feel like action movies they used to be from the 80s and the 90s. Not a lot of like CGI. It feels like, you know, you're watching real stuntmen fighting and real explosions and real, you know, real gunfire and all that stuff. And I feel like that's what made Die Hard so special, among many other things, is that it felt like all that was actually happening. It wasn't like an over CGI thing. He also, like I said, is a former stuntman. He was a kickboxer. So I feel like he could really do a great job with all the stunts and all the like the fighting that happens in the movie. There's a lot of, you know, John having to fight all the different terrorists or robbers yeah, I just think he would just do a great job, and he has the, you know, Keanu Reeves stamp of approval, and that's good enough for me. Yeah, Chad Stahelski for director.
Argue.
Yeah, well, I guess my main thing with Curtis and Charlie, you guys, is that they've never directed action before. I really loved Ready or Not, and that's interesting, the connection you made, Curtis, with Ready or Not and Die Hard.
Ready or Not's awesome.
Ready or Not is awesome. It does seem like they like directing movies about like women in peril, so that, especially now that we have a female John McClane, that would work well here. Charlie, with Jamie Babbitt, you listed a lot of her work. I haven't seen a lot of that stuff, and I'm sure she's great. I think you're right that she would do a great job with the emotional aspect, the character aspect, but I just don't know if it would be a very exciting action movie. Maybe we'll watch a movie about Natasha Lyonne and Sarah Paulson having a troubled relationship, but I don't know if there would be a lot of helicopters exploding in her version of Die Hard.
Well, I guess my main choice for her would to be that it's time for that to happen. It's time for prominent, there to be a prominent voice of LGBTQ representation in the action community. And I couldn't think of anyone better to put their towel in the ring than Jamie Babbitt, who has achieved cult icon status in that realm. And I think given the opportunity, proven especially from what she's done on Russian Doll, which there's some crazy sequences in that film, are yeah, I mean, I know that's my downfall and that she hasn't done it, but I think my reason for it is that it's about time someone did.
Right. Well, yeah, I guess my question to you, you kind of said it was like, why would she want to direct this? You know, like, why would she want to do Die Hard? You know, what do you think? Just the emotional relationship
So
aspect?
yeah, no, I think that's a super valid question. I think
Yeah.
the idea of one, she'd love the opportunity to work with Natasha Lyonne again. They're very frequent content collaborators, I should say. But I think, like I said before, she's always pushed the boundary in terms of what haven't we seen in mainstream before in terms of the LGBT community. Can you name any LGBT-led action movies, like where it's not just a pandering sort of thing where they shoehorned it in, like in the last Star Wars movie where everyone made a big stink about, oh, there's going to be the first gay kiss in Star Wars, and it was literally 2 seconds at the end? Like, no, I want something that's going to show a real, true LGBT story from beginning to end, done by people in that community who know how to portray it accurately. And I want to see how people in that community would react and be in an action movie. I know I'm really kind of placing a lot of hope and idealism in the people to just kind of want it, but I believe that want is there.
Right. One other. Go
know
ahead,
much
Curtis.
about,
Yeah.
Jamie Babbitt. I heard you know what Charlie has listed off. It's a lot of experience. I just don't know if it worked well. George with Chad Stileski. I love the John Wick movies. I think they're so action-packed and they're so well done. I think the only problem with Chad Stileski is that he directs action, I think, a little bit too fast. I think with Die Hard, I think you need the pace of the action to be a lot slower and a lot more realistic and a lot more, because John Wick is awesome. It's a little bit fantasized action, if you know what I mean. It's a bit more stylized, and Die Hard's supposed to be rough and gritty and just unapologetically blunt. And
yeah, John McClane isn't John Wick. He's not boom, 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 going all over the place. He's a New York street cop, like doing his best to get by. And I not to shoehorn your point, but I agree with you, Curtis. I think it would be great, but I don't think it would be Die Hard.
Yeah, especially again, like the movie in our world, the movie doesn't exist, so it's going to be instead be brought to 2020. But we're trying to get that same vibe. I think we need a director who knows how to do action a little bit more slower than how Chad Stileski does and how to do it in the John Wick films. I think what my choice for Radio Silence, again, I'll probably like they basically already did Die Hard with Ready or Not, and I'll disagree with George that I think there's a lot of action like set pieces in Ready or Not wherever our lead played by Samara Weaving has to defend herself from her in-laws that are trying to kill her. And of course, when she's trying to finish off the butler in the movie, it's like a Die Hard sequence where she's trying to rid of them in the limo or the car or wherever. And it's about surviving the night. And it's very bloody and it's very gory, and that's the type of things that Die Hard does. So I just think that Radio Silence would be just a perfect fit for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because like Chad Stahelski, I feel like he could adjust the level of the action based on the script. You're right. John Wick is a little different, but I feel like John Wick is also kind of like Die Hard in that it's essentially this tough guy action hero, but it's someone who is doing all this because he lost his dog and he lost his wife. So it's a very kind of emotional reason that he's doing all this. It's almost kind of like what's that Clint Eastwood movie, Unforgiven, where it's kind of like he used to be this trained killer, but now he's trying to settle down and be a nice guy. So I don't know. I just, again, it's tough because your directors haven't done an action movie. Again, I love Ready or Not, and like Charlie, like you said, I think Jamie Babbitt would do a great job with the acting scenes. It's just hard to know what she would do with the action scenes, So obviously just 3 very different choices for director. And I just, pick Chad Stahelski because I think he's proven that he can do great action that is kind of, like I said, a throwback to like 80s and 90s action that was a little more, visceral and not like it was all done with a computer. You can tell that it was all actually being done on the set, which they did with Die Hard. And I think they've been doing, as far as I know, with John Wick.
Yeah, I totally get why you picked him, George. It's less about like what's being shot with him. It's more about where he chooses to place the camera with it that really makes his film so spectacular. Like, I know I'm not supposed to be talking up your choices, but I totally get it. It's awesome. I'm too nice. I should crap on you guys more, but I love you both, so it's hard.
You can crap on me later. Sorry.
That'll cost you extra. It's a family show. I'm good.
Okay, good round, guys. I will say yes, they are all very different choices that could work in interesting ways, no matter which way you do it. So with Charlie, with your choice, like, yes, like they might not have done an action movie, but like the Orville has action in it. So TV and movie, it's really just like how long you can tell the story. So I wouldn't count that against your pick. But for me, it was between Curtis and George's picks, just because there is a little bit more background on it and we can kind of see what they're doing as far as like telling a full-fledged movie. But they're also very different. They tell action very well in very different ways. I feel like in 2020, the stunts might be a little crazier than they were back in the 80s, and they'd want to really hone in on the action. And it's not even just so much the stunts of it, but it's also telling the beats of an action movie and an action story that's important. And I think for me, I'm going with George's pick just because I love Radio Silence, but I do agree. I feel like a lot of their great storytelling is, yes, with action, but action combined with horror or thriller. Whereas this is just kind of a straight out and out action movie that I think that George's pick might have a little bit more of an edge on. So that is my choice. Johnny, what's your choice?
So, straight up, very quick, we got time. I'm gonna go with Radio Silence because it is, I feel like it's so much more up their vein. I do appreciate the idea that it is 2020 and action audience would be asking more, but John McClane on paper, Don McClane, Jennifer McClane, whatever McClane she is, McClane is a person who has to deal with the impetus of what's happening right now, being wrapped up, being trying to keep their head underwater. And I think that that's so much more of what I've seen from Radio Silence. Chad's great. I really love his work. Jamie Babbitt, I would really love to trust the audience of today, but I don't. So I'm going to have to go with Radio Silence.
All right, and Logan, what's your pick?
Oh, this is another tricky debate. I thoroughly enjoy Radio Silence's movies as well. Jamie Babbitt, like, I mean, same with like the Orville. Like, I enjoy their work on that as well. But I kept circling back to Chad Stahelski. Like, when it comes to action, like, I agree. Like, there is something to be said about a stuntman knowing how to shoot action, and at its core, like, Die Hard is a really good action movie, and Chad can hit really good comedy beats as well, and he can get, I mean, lest we forget, he also did Deadpool 2, which balances a lot of tones across the board, but is still a really fun movie. So yeah, I'd say I'd go with George's pick.
Okay, so with that, we do have a tie because Hunter picked Radio Silence. So Charlie, it is up to you between Curtis and George's picks to break it.
How is it up to me?
Because you're the only one who hasn't voted.
But I'm not a judge.
You are now, Charlie. I'm knighting you a judge for this round.
Okay. Sorry, I was confused.
Oh, no, you're fine.
You just have to break the tie, basically.
Okay. Who was nicer to me? No. No. I gotta go with Radio Silence, honestly, because I absolutely see what you were saying about how there were scenes in there that were very Die Hard-esque, That's probably one of my favorite movies in the last year, like of any genre. It was so good. It was so enthralling. But yeah, it's just stylized enough and just knows where to put the camera in action enough to be visually interesting and something different.
Okay.
So with that, the director is Radio Silence. And we have a movie.
All right, we have our full cast and our director. Let's round them up. As Argyle, we got Pete Davidson. As Harry Ellis, we got Tom Felton. As Joe Takagi, we got I don't know if I'm saying his name right. Ryu Ishibashi. Is that correct?
I think so. Yeah, Ryu Ishibashi. Yeah.
Ryu Ishibashi. I might have butchered that. I'm sorry. Dwayne T Robinson. Bruce Campbell's playing Dwayne. As Al Powell, we have Lil Rel Howery. As Holly Genero, we have Sarah Paulson. As Hans Gruber, we have Tom Ellis. As John McClane, we have Natasha Lyonne. And as the director, we got Radio Silence. Now, unlike most episodes, we're not going to do a whole around what we think. Let's just do a quick yay or nay. So as enthusiastic as you feel about this, yay or nay?
Yay.
All at the same time, or?
About this.
Yeah, sure.
About this.
Yay!
Yay!
Hey.
Hey.
Hooray!
I watched this movie. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'd go because after Ready or Not, I'm following Radio Silence's career, and I want to see what they do with the next Scream movie.
I'm so excited.
Tom Ellis in a big screen. I know he had a small appearance in that Rebel Wilson movie. It's called Isn't It Lovely? Is that what it's called?
Oh no, isn't it romantic?
Isn't it
He was the
romantic?
hot doctor.
Yeah. I know he had a little small role in that, but in a bigger role, I want to see Tom Ellis really.
Give him all the roles, man. I just want to see more
Campbell's
of
in it. Bruce Campbell's in it. Tom Felton, Pete Davidson. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna go with Sarah Paulson. This is stacked with a talented cast. So yeah, I would be really looking forward to seeing this movie in a world where Die Hard didn't exist, but there's a new action movie called Die Hard with this talented cast, with a talented set of directors. Yeah, I definitely go see it. I'm just gonna say right now, we're gonna piss off a lot of basement dwellers, but who cares? But so anyway, let's round up the cast. Argyle, Pete Davidson, Harry Ellis, Tom Felton, Joe Takagi, again, Ryu Ishibashi, again, I might be butchering that. Dwayne T Robinson, Bruce Campbell as Al Powell. We have Lil Rel Howery as Holly Genero. We have Sarah Paulson as Hans Gruber. We have Tom Ellis and as John McClane. We have Natasha Lyonne as Don McClane. And as director, we have Radio Silence. So that is it for this episode of Cast the Future. I'd like to thank our panel. I thank George and Charlie and Johnny and Logan and Jessica and Hunter, who had to leave early, but his presence is with us. The next Cast the Future is TBA, but I will set it up pretty soon. Again, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed our debates, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Yippee-ki-yay.